I went for the drama tonight. You'll understand. Evening all. Welcome to the Sense Sphere, where common sense, talking sense, making sense prevails. All opinions and all viewpoints entertained, because the art of debate cannot be allowed to die. We do sometimes find alternative views on Doctor Who to ourselves, and they're hard to get on the show. It isn't for want of trying, and you have my guarantee I will respect your opportunity to share your view. So whether it's in the thread or you actually invite yourself onto our show, that's the way to do it. Yeah. So it's Thursday, the 9th of April, 2026, and I felt I needed to share some of the most visceral moments from my discussion with the media source, my friend, my experienced media professional colleague who has produced and is still very active across terrestrial TV channels and abroad with independent companies. He was so fired up about how fans had been treated. He said words like mind-blowing, suicide, remarks that resonated very quickly to me. And then you think of Stephen Moffat. People have started to distribute what he said recently, that Doctor Who is a mass appeal show. It has to appeal to all sides of the argument. You can't just be on the left wing or the right wing, says Stephen Moffat. You can't. You've got to appeal to everybody. And I want to appeal to everybody out there. All your viewpoints I want to see. I want you to share them. I want us to kind of get really involved in this one. I'm not on my own. Of course, I've got a very shy lad. He's very shy. He hasn't been doing his Sci-Fi Chronicles 79 every day. So I've sneaked him on here, and we might just get him back doing Sci-Fi Chronicles 79 on his channel. So here we go. Hiya, John.
Hey, how you doing, mate? You all right?
Yeah, you've been a bit shy recently. Everybody's wondering what you're up to.
I snuck into the shadows and you've pulled me back, mate.
Yanked you back with it.
Yeah. Space-time telegraph. Yeah.
Yeah, and we haven't had Goldie on for a while, and I really do like Goldie too, and so it's really good to catch him. Hiya, Goldie.
Hello, it's good to be here again.
And there's a good reason why as well. On another benefit, I'm a Doctor Who fan from the not from the 50s, in his 50s. We've got John in his 40s, and we've got Goldie in his early 20s. And all of us really are not happy with Doctor Who. So it's interesting that the three of us crossing 3 decades are not happy with the state of play. I mean, come on. I mean, that's not as bad as a kind of vox pops already. But we'll get motoring. I mean, we are the fans, aren't we, Goldie and John? We get the merchandise. We like the past. We collect. We enjoy all about it. We excite ourselves over the old films that have just been found. Yeah. Dalek Master Plan. We all go wild and react like crazy in a fever as if it's Beatles mania. The money we've spent on Tat.
I mean, it never stops, does it? I mean, you know, I started in the VHS range, then DVDs, now the collections. What else am I going to get in the future? Is it going to be, you know, virtual reality Doctor Who episodes going forward? Who knows? I'll buy it though, because I love all of the stuff from the history of Doctor Who, with the exception of 2017 onwards.
Yeah. And I know when you've been on my channel the last couple of years, we've talked about how you've stopped watching, you've got irritated by what you've seen. When I come to Goldie, you contacted me when we were talking yesterday. You said you've been having a kind of a patch where your love of Doctor Who has waned.
Yeah, I mean, fortunately, because I know this is not the same with some other Doctor Who fans I've talked to. Some of them have kind of they're sort of, their experience with the past few years has kind of tainted everything for them. But for me, it's not so much that the current state of the show has impacted how I view the previous years. It's just so much that when people are speculating about what's going to happen, who's going to be in charge, this person, what's going to happen, I just sort of zone out, because I really need something to give me some serious hope before I start to invest any more energy. If anything, you know, it's just the energy you put into thinking about all these different things, and it's just not really there for me anymore. But you were talking about merchandise. I do get jealous sometimes when I look at like your guys' collections and things, because you guys have got far more merchandise than me. I do have my fair share of action figures, collection box sets, novels, but I know some people are very hardcore collectors, and I just look at their shelves and think, oh, I want all those.
Yeah, but because of that, I have to sell a car regularly to do it. So you're winning, Goldie.
Now we've got Graham here, and I need to check out Graham. Will you tell me, are you the one? Are you the uncle of the crew who were on the other night? I just want to check that one out, because they said it was Graham, and I thought, well, I know one certain Graham follows us. I've been collecting the W.H. Allen hardbacks, but they are an expensive hobby to get involved in. It's very hard to understand why we get involved in a certain part of collections, isn't it? Sometimes hardbacks, softbacks, blah blah blah. Now, maybe Goldie, if you haven't already ordered it, you might be interested in this. I mean, I've blacklisted John, but you might be in for this. Is my giveaway this month. You're on a warning for getting no super chats.
I've got an idea for a SenSphere giveaway.
I'll get Brendan to shock you.
That's not fair. That's against the robot protocol.
Shall we give the Season 21 Blu-ray collection away as a giveaway?
Blu-ray sounds mucky.
Yes, we give away one set to a subscriber.
I'd love to give away your gran. She's more into a bingo these days. So how does it work, son?
A draw in the next few weeks for all UK subscribers of the SenSphere.
Oh, and then I type in Sarah's Jack in the designated show.
Yes, and the winner gets announced by Mr. Brendan.
That's genius, Walkie. Apple doesn't fall far from the trees, does it?
Just a Grandad, you're right.
I'm so proud of you, son. So proud of you.
Thank you, Grandad. It's just to say thank you to all our subscribers.
Well, I'm more likely to go. I need a wee. I tell you what, the sound of all this water, it's doing funny things to me.
I thought I could smell something, Grandad.
Well, come on, let's go and find some toilets. There's a snag here. Now, can I just officially tell everybody? Yes, it's a giveaway of one Blu-ray, and yes, everybody every show now tries to get Shara's Jack into all their comments.
They do.
I'll tell you which show it is. It's not this one. Obviously, it's to try and build awareness as well. Most of you are our subscribers, so you're in it to win it already, really, as long as you're in the UK postal code. Obviously, the details are there if you want them paused, but, they are there, everybody. You can see in the next few weeks, it'll be just after our 500th, I bet, the way that we're going at the moment. And then you type in Shara's Jack, but I'll announce it, everybody. I'll make sure there's an actual, postal community thing. So, Goldie, you might be in for that if you haven't got Season 21 already.
No, I don't. I usually hold out on getting these until the standard releases come out, but for the past few seasons I've been a bit kind of because AI's been used to upscale a lot of the images, and whenever these box sets come out now, there's always a huge uproar about people comparing the image qualities between the DVD and the Blu-rays, and so that's made me a little bit more hesitant to pick these up myself.
And look at this. Adam, thank you for saying that. Nice to see a multi-regenerational panel today. Different perspectives. Yeah, exactly.
Different Time Lords. We're all the same Time Lord.
I'm the original. No, sorry. Oh, God. Just before we move on, Graham, I know you're not the uncle of the lads, but you could claim to be. Sounds silly, but some of my most loved merchandise is the lovely 1970s Weetabix cards. I loved them.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I remember. Why? The thing is, in the 70s, we actually played with them, and then we didn't keep them. When I see people and they've got them behind cellophane and stuff, I'm going, are you for real? Are you a bubble kid? Those, did you just live, or did you just kind of wrap everything? On Christmas Day, on the nighttime, you
tear that box open.
Yeah, and then you wrapped it up again, said, I'll keep it one day. No, I played with stuff. The trouble is it then got put in the bin.
Likewise. If I could travel back now, though, and tell my family to keep all of my Star Wars collection of toys, I would, because that would have been an absolute fortune now.
Oh, can you imagine? I mean, a lot of it was just cardboard, though, I have to say. A lot of it was just cardboard. So we're here. Obviously, it's a big topic. I know it's really got people triggered. But the most triggered was actually my media source. There's me rabbiting on. I had a set of questions. I always do. I know what the thread wants me to ask. And the source just kept going to this topic. So I thought, well, hello. And then I showed all the topics that I discussed in March with the source. And I said to John, which one looks tasty to you as a Doctor Who fan? And this is the topic. So well done, John.
Here we are.
Here we are, right in the crud. So more and more we hear from people, media professionals talking about us, saying, go and touch grass. We're all phobes. We're all triggered by the woke topic. We are no longer needed. We only see Doctor Who through a white male, only gaze prism. The list goes on. I know you've got some as well, John, haven't you? But, you know, before I come to John, because he's obviously done his research as well, and he's obviously done his broadcasts about stuff like this. Goldie, as somebody a lot younger than both of us, but equally you've lost kind of your love for Doctor Who. Why have you lost your love for Doctor Who? Because we're the ones who are anti-woke and all the rest of it, but I'm sure you're not. So why have you lost your love for Doctor Who?
Well, it's funny you exclude me from that, because I think a lot of people would say to the contrary. But there's many reasons why I've sort of fallen out of love with Doctor Who. It happened, same with John, I think, around about the 2018 time when Chibnall came in, and the Whittaker era started. That's when my love plummeted. And really, the first thing that really set that all off was the change in how fans were talking about the show. It was no longer about judging a story. It was no longer about talking about the science fiction aspects. It was about, right, if you hate this episode, then we're going to try and find something about the episode, a demographic within the episode, and therefore it must just mean that you hate that group of people. Yeah. And it was absolutely ridiculous. And like back in the Moffat days, it was kind of the not the cool thing, but you'd see it a lot where people would just go, oh, this is another crap Moffat story, and people would hate on his writing, and most people were just kind of fine with that. But then when Chibnall came in and people were criticizing his, it was kind of like blasphemy. It's like, wait, what? You're criticizing a Jodie Whittaker episode? How dare you? And I just kind of really got taken out of it. And then 2020, Timeless Children, all that, you know. But after the Whittaker era ended and when RTD2 was beginning, I did have a lot of hope and optimism, because one, Russell made it clear that he wanted the original series on iPlayer for everyone to watch, along with Torchwood and Sarah Jane Adventure. So I thought, great, that's going to bring in even more people. At the time, he seemed to be making comments that seemed to indicate that it was going in the right direction. Like, for example, Russell did that one interview where he said that a lot of people working in the industry nowadays, they know all about identity and all these politics, but they're unable to write a story. And I thought, okay, even though Russell has the views he does and the politics he does, that's absolutely fine, as long as he can write some good Doctor Who. And I thought that was going to be the case. But then when we got to the Star Beast, all the stupid one-liners in that just took me out. And then you had the Gatwa era, which I was giving the benefit of the doubt, but you know, I watched it and most of it I just couldn't stomach. There are the few episodes I will happily defend. Boom. I do really like that episode. The first half of 73 Yards I thought was going to be incredible. Yeah. I thought this could be one of my favorite Doctor Who stories, but then it goes in this completely other direction where there's this whole political party aspect and what is going on? This feels like a totally different thing. And then also just in general, I think the show it's not been able to move on. It's in this state of just constantly having to recycle. Like in most of the Shooty episodes, there are flashbacks or direct callbacks to things in previous seasons. It's not actually creating something new. It's just remember this, remember this. You go back to the early seasons of the revival. Gallifrey wasn't mentioned until season 3. The past Doctors were not shown until the end of, well, actually, it was after season 4. It was during the specials. So they went nearly 5 seasons without referencing the original series. But as soon as the Shooty Gatwa era started, it was just always callbacks to the Tennant era and remember this, remember this. And I want something new. I don't want to feel like I'm watching a highlight reel of everything from the past.
So apart from that, there's yeah. I mean, the shocker, John, the shocker. as Goldie, I mean, and I think that's spontaneous. He's listed a whole ream of reasons why he, in his early 20s, clearly a new whoer, has fallen out of love with Doctor Who. You hear there from Goldie John. You hear about the politics of 73 Yards. No, the second half, no. Didn't like the Star Beast. This is what we've been saying, but we got told off, John, didn't we?
Yeah, Goldie kind of mirrors where I am with it, and what he said, it nail on the head. You know, in 2017, when Jodie Whittaker was cast as the Doctor, I'm on record on many occasions of saying I didn't agree with it because I don't agree with a female Doctor. That's my view, that's my opinion, and I'll stick with it. But what I noticed at that point as well was it began a campaign of actively trying to antagonize longtime fans as well. You had the famous glass ceiling clip that they had on the BBC of the glass ceiling shattering above Jodie Whittaker, you know,
Yes,
and then it went from there, and she would read out comments from people online and do a, you know, their idiot's face. So it went from there, and then Chibnall, the only credit I'll give Chibnall was the fact that he still had monsters that made it feel like it was Doctor Who, even though I do not like that era at all. But then we get to the 60th and onwards, and again, this guy, Russell T Davies, came back not to do Doctor Who. He came to send his ideology and messaging into a show that is beloved by so many people for over 60 years. That's what he did. He can fluff it up as much as he wants, but that's what he did. I mean, again, I'll give you a comment as well. And this is a snapshot of, I think, what we've had over Doctor Who with Doctor Who for the last how many years. Rtd'S Sifu of an interview with the Radio Times, she said, there's been a couple of Doctor Woke references or whatever, she began. But I just think we're doing the right thing if we're getting comments like that. Ncuti was like, look at us. We get to be in the TARDIS. We're going to piss off so many people. You know, and again, before it's even aired, you're trying to antagonize people. And that is something that has become quite common and quite prevalent across not just Doctor Who, but other productions as well. I've got examples later of Star Trek Academy. You know, that's another example where they mirror up exactly. It's antagonize the hardcore, the longtime fans. But then what happens at the end of it? The audience isn't there for the ones that they're supposedly directing the shows to.
All for people who use the word inclusive without applying it by themselves. I mean, I was a fan of the original RTD era. Good choice of Chris Eccleston. I know it went flat. Clever use of concise dialogue. I mean, Time War covers all those cracks of Gallifrey and all that stuff. You know, let's just move on. And a lot of us would applaud what Chris Chibnall tried to do, which is going forward, new characters, new villains. Moot point about your casting, but you know, I think he was trying to do something a bit more brave than other people had. I hear what Goldie's saying about always looking backwards, and really we should be looking forwards. Go like Philip Hinchcliffe, his proper first season, more like that. I think that's what fans want. And then when you keep re-establishing Doctor Who as progressive, and I mean progressive as in new villains, new monsters, it's out there, it's on the edge, it's taking risks. Then now and again, your Dalek appears. Now and again, a Cyberman or an Ice Warrior appears, or Sontaran. Now and again. And to be quite honest, to me, in my childhood, seeing Time Lords and seeing Gallifrey was a rare thing. It wasn't like, oh, here we go again. Because remember the moment Sarah Jane Smith was told, get out the TARDIS. Sorry, you can't come. You're a foreigner.
Yeah.
And now that maybe it's an analogy for what's happened across the.
Well, let's be fair. In Jodie Whittaker's first story, even the TARDIS tried to kick her out. So
I mean. So, I mean, we're giving our opinions, which of course is what people have come to see. But obviously, my source is going to get in there on the act now. So, This is one tasty one. Why would you watch Doctor Who, Brendan? Why would you watch that and see all that weird kind of lecturing, being told you should be this, you're a racist, you're a transphobe, I mean, it's suicide, Brendan. So what is the vision that can put all that behind the show and can attract the audience? My source asks a lot of questions, and the answer was they didn't have a vision that could pull all that together. They give us, as I think Goldie was saying, we got the lectures and we got all the stuff, but we didn't get the stories to match them. That was the problem. One, you got the cart before the horse. I don't know if RTD just thought, do you know what? I am comfortable now in this second era being in charge, where I am comfortable that we've got more money than we ever had. I am comfortable that I can just write whatever I want, and I will. And I think there's a bit of that went on, because I didn't see any careful weaving or crafting of the story. You said Boom, so let's go to that, Goldie. What was it about Boom that appealed to you? Because to me, I felt like somebody was stood on a landmine for quite a long time. I got some dreary politics. There was a lot about religion and that. I got some lovely emotional touches between the dead dad, but he's not in it really. You got a bit of the Doctor finding him attractive, I thought. But I thought, oh my God, there's no action. And actually that LED screen started to look very like an LED screen. So Goldie, being a lot younger than me, why did you like that?
Well, there are many things about it. So before this episode, we had Space Babies and The Devil's Cord. So we had 2 episodes with Shooty. They both aired together, if you remember. They did that double billing. And so this was the first episode after the premiere. So I remember as soon as it started, I instantly thought, right, okay, this looks darker. This looks more serious, because those other 2 aren't serious. They're like a comedy, but they're not funny. But, they think they're lighthearted and funny. Whereas this episode, it started off very dark. We got soldiers in the battlefield. And in both Space Babies and The Devil's Cord, whenever the Doctor's presented with the antagonist, he runs away. But in this episode, it starts, he hears screaming, he runs towards the danger. So I thought, right, okay, Moffat is really writing the Doctor as he should be. He's running towards the danger. He's looking to solve the problem. And so you have that. I do think the idea of him stepping on the landmine is very interesting, because the Doctor usually does go into a situation and quickly figures everything out. So to have him on the back burner and needing to guide his companion, I thought was an interesting thing that they did. The Doctor and Ruby have a better dynamic in that episode than all the others, because, and this is something which fans universally can agree on, they're just kind of like 2 gal pals. There's no conflict. There's no tension between them. And a good Doctor companion dynamic requires there to be a bit of back and forth for them to not always be working like perfectly. The companion should be questioning what the Doctor's doing. There's a lot of that in that episode as well. There's that one moment when Ruby is going to pass him the object that's going to balance his weight, and he analyzes the situation and assesses that it's too risky, but she goes ahead with it anyway because she wants him to be free. And he says something along the lines of, I don't know if the exact quote here, but he says, if this does work, I'm going to be very angry with you. And I just thought I could imagine all the other Doctors saying that. So I thought, right, okay, Moffat's writing the Doctor like the Doctor. Now, I believe, and again, I don't have any exact evidence to back this up, but I remember watching the commentaries, and Moffat hinted that this episode was essentially a leftover Capaldi script that was never used. And so that's why the messaging, the one-off lines in this episode do feel like one-off lines aside, and not part of the actual story. Like that whole thing about where the Doctor says he went to this nightclub and there were some lesbians or something. It's got nothing to do with the story. It doesn't belong there whatsoever. Whereas with the other RTD episodes, those lines are the story, and they need to be there because the whole story is woven around these one-liners. Whereas that one didn't need to be there, so I could just go, right, yeah, doesn't it be there? Whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not saying Boom's a perfect episode. I give it like 7 out of 10. It's not up there, but I think it's the only episode since Twice Upon a Time that I've been able to watch and go, that's recognizably Doctor Who for me.
Well, that's why I was interested. That's what I mean. I'm happy with alternative views. I'm always intrigued by them. What I'll do, lads, is I'll just quickly rattle through some of our threads here, because the thread are live and I'm seeing new names as well as old names. So good to see you all.
Yeah,
Tony Farrell agrees that John's right. The glass ceiling was clearly a deliberate strategy. It was a show-off strategy, really, wasn't it? I do remember that, and it was all very pink and all the rest of it, and lots of feminine. It was all very like that. Adam, so many IPs over the last decade have been burned to the ground. I'm in my 50s and it's such a huge step backwards for all fandom. Adam, me and you both, I do sometimes wonder whether those people who are actually taking over these franchises that we know and love just don't have the skill and the imagination to carry them on, and actually should have the bravery of people like my media source, who will have their own independent company, and actually their idea stands on its own merits. I mean, let's be truthful. You don't ambush an established brand. I think that's what's sad. There's a lot of cowards around in the media.
It's a common thing now, isn't it? I mean, again, the great examples is not just Doctor Who, it's Star Trek, it's Star Wars, Marvel, DC, you name it. They've been infested by these people. And just quickly, mate, I've got two quotes, okay, which I think you'll find interesting. One is from Russell T Davies, which says it all. The other one is from somebody else that is refreshing to hear, and it's been done in the last sort of 24 hours. So I just want to give you this. Okay. So, Russell T Davies, this is when he did an interview with the Manchester Evening News a while ago. He said, Russell T Davies slammed the online warriors dissecting the series. Someone always brings up matters of diversity, and there are online warriors accusing us of diversity and wokeness and involving messages and issues. And I have no time for this. I don't have a second to bear it, because what you might call diversity, I just call an open door, he said. And he then also said, appearing on Doctor Who 20 Secrets from 20 Years, he said, the only way to write is based on life. Okay. Now, I want to give you a quote from a very, very good writer called Andy Weir, and you might be familiar with him because his Project Hail Mary movie is out at the moment, and he also did The Martian. So this is what he said in the last 24 hours. I dislike social commentary, like I really hate it. When I'm reading a book, I just want to be entertained, not preached at by the author. Plus, it ruins the wonder of the story if I know the author has a political or social axe to grind. I no longer speculate about all possible outcomes of the story because I know for a fact that the universe of that book will conspire to ensure that the author's political agenda is validated. I hate that. And then he finishes off with, I put no politics or social commentary into my stories at all. Anyone who thinks they see something like that is reading it in their own, reading in on it on their own. I have no point to make, and I'm not trying to affect the reader's opinion on anything. My sole job is to entertain, and I stick to that. To that end, I also don't talk about my personal political opinions publicly. I don't want readers to even know, honestly. I don't want that in the back of their minds as they read my stuff. That's Andy Weir in the last 24 to 48 hours.
This is the point, because as soon as you know somebody's viewpoint and then you're watching their presentation, you do, by accident or on purpose, you start to think, I think you're trying to push a message on me because I can see what you're doing. Whereas, and I know Michael Herbert checked in earlier, who wrote the Malcolm Hulke biography, people like Malcolm Hulke, I wasn't aware of his background. I'm not aware of Terry Nation's background. No. I'm not aware of Terence Dix's politics. They just wrote the blooming stuff. And then they also knew what they were doing. And they have lovely nuances and subtleties in their writing. When you know very strongly somebody's opinion, and then you get a presentation that has no subtlety, and there's a clear message and a clear right and wrong, I have to say, I think everybody pushes back. I saw it at school. Goldie will know this. You can do an assembly, and if the teacher goes strong, there's a lot in the room who go, nah, I'm not listening to this. Because you have to be included. You have to pull the kids through. The kids hate a message. I don't know how many of you saw me with Joe Chapman and her son Gabriel last week. 16 years old. He's still at school. And he said to me, I didn't give him any lines. He said, I am sick of messages. I get them all day at school. And then on top of that, he said, Doctor Who is cringe. Now, so you can add a 16-year-old to early 20s Goldie, 40s John, 50s me. Who's liking this and who's lying here? Now, Goldie, I referenced you there. I'm still really intrigued why somebody your age, because you're this new breed coming through. You're used to this messaging and you're used to maybe being more thoughtful in a different way to how we were taught. So how come you've pushed back on this?
Well, and I'm glad you've asked that, because as John was reading out those quotes, there's many things I did want to say. Now, anyone who knows anything about storytelling in general, but specifically science fiction, will know that it's a very interesting genre to explore different themes in, because, and here's the interesting thing that perhaps can only be done in science fiction, but also fantasy, is that the nature of the genre allows you to explore these ideas in such a way where you aren't preaching to an audience. Now, the reason why this is the case is because if you want to explore themes, any social themes, or maybe politics relating to economic situations, things like that, you can do it all in a science fiction story in a nuanced way, because you can set your story on a different planet where all the people look totally different. They don't look anything like us. And so you're removing those preconceived notions and those prejudices from the audience. Because if you were to say, right, this group believes this group believes that, and it was set on Earth, us, the readers, the watchers, we'd be able to draw comparisons and go, right, this group's supposed to reflect me, this group is supposed to reflect my opposition. But if in a science fiction story, if you made the characters be set on a different planet, they look totally different, their way of life is different, then you're able to explore those ideas, and the audience isn't as turned off by it, because everything's not relating to the contemporary, conditions of Earth at the time and the place and so forth. And you can even see this when comparing the RTD1 and the RTD2 eras. Now, take The Long Game, for example. Not really a good episode, right? But there are themes in it on how the media manipulates information and misinformation, things like that. The reason it works well in that story is because you have those themes of misinformation, and it's applied on a galactic scale. It's all about all these different species. And so you're not turned off by it, because it's not going, right, here are these left-wing people, here are these right-wing people. It's completely different people. It's a bunch of aliens. So you're able to accept the themes, and you're intrigued by them. But if you look at something like Lucky Day, which also talks about themes of misinformation, it's set on Earth. You have the characters going on BBC News. There's no nuance to it. There's no science fiction. So that's why people are turned off by it, because there's literally nothing science fiction about it. It's literally going, right, you, the audience, are supposed to be represented by this person, and the people who don't agree with that are represented by these people. And it's ridiculous. And that's why ultimately they fail to even maturely discuss these themes, because they're not being done in a way that fits the show. I know a lot of people who, criticize the modern stuff now will be saying that, back in the day, our Doctor Who didn't have all these messaging and things like that. It did, but it was done in a much more science fiction way. It was done in a way where it was accessible, and you could actually listen and not be alienated. And you also mentioned something, John. This is a very crucial point, is that even though the recent RTD2 era has been absolutely shocking, regardless of what any of the cast have said or RTD, but here's the thing, right? If they had just not said anything to antagonize the fans, they just said, right, it's airing at this time, please watch, whatever. Yes, we still would have watched it and gone, right, this is awful. But we wouldn't have gone into it with our defenses up. But
100%.
Before it's even aired, they've said all these bunch of things, which has just turned people off. And I've also seen this on the other side of the fandom, well, you may say RTD shills, or, the people who are generally accepting of this modern entertainment. They've even criticized that as well, because, and I think people forget this, even though the RTD2 era preaches their politics, they still want some good entertainment as well. Like, for
Yeah.
example, if I was watching a show and it was preaching my beliefs and my politics, I would have an issue with that as well, because it's not supposed to be there. It's supposed to be entertainment. And a lot of them have also reflected the sentiment by saying that, okay, Russell, you don't like Trump, you don't like Elon Musk, but why are you mentioning them in Doctor Who? Just forget about them. Don't have them occupy these stories. If you really don't care about these culture warriors, why are you making these stories, you know, based around them? Just move on. Like,
exactly.
He's forgetting that Doctor Who was about escapism. Donald Trump, whatever, who cares? Can I have some escapism now, please, RTD?
And
I don't care what's happening over there. Well, I do, but that's for the news. At the moment, I'm watching Doctor Who. Can I have something else? And the other thing is, as a gay man, I have to say, just like what Goldie said then, just because I'm a gay man, I don't need to see a gay doctor. I don't need to see gay relationships in Doctor Who. I don't need to see it in bloody Emmerdale. I don't need it. I just want good stories and good characters who are authentic. That's it.
Well, Goldie is bang on with everything he said. And you know, RTD in his quotes, he says he basically is writing about his own life experience. So surely, you know, and I'm not a writer, I don't claim to be, but surely the ability to be a great writer is to actually be able to create something that isn't 100% based around your own life experience. And constantly he keeps coming back to that. I think in 2005 era, RTD1 era, we got lucky because we were in a time where there were more constraints on Russell T Davies on what he could get away with. Now it's a completely different scenario.
And Johnny was more nervous then because we all know they were worried, would Doctor Who survive? Would it be a successful launch? They were more cagey, and that caginess contained RTD, as you're saying. Now, thank you, Michael Nemo here. Thank you very much for being so generous. The cracks for me started to appear, River. A love interest has led us to where we are today. Also, am I a good man? Also, Bill Potts needing to announce her feminism and sexual preferences.
Every episode.
Every episode, yes. And I'm an LGBT liberal Latin. Exactly, Michael. This is the point. We don't need... I have to say, I think if it's over-laboured, as I was saying about assemblies, if you go a bit too certain, you just see the audience resist instead of trying to tease them out. That's why I opened today by saying I like to hear different viewpoints. Debate should not be dead. And the whole point of debate is you still listen. You don't just listen to your own echo chamber. And I think that's become the problem in everything. I have to say, in everything. But thank you, Michael, for that. And I also will do my usual. We've mentioned, I mean, there's more from the source, so I should actually, thank you with, well, hello.
With your good, I'll treat the wife to a blue rinse.
It was nice of you there. So this was only the starting gambit from my source here. A lot more to come. And I have to say, I even had people writing to me again today about, you know, your source and all the rest of it. Oh, it's a long story. I was just very lucky, I have to say, because he actually wrote to me and said, Brendan, you are joining a lot of the dots. And I need to help you with the one or two of the holes that are left, because I've never worked in the media. So, you know, I put this together, obviously, because I knew people were intrigued. But he does exist. He is a media producer. He's been around a while in the media industry. And I can't say too much. That's not fair.
What is it? What do you want? Take this, read it, and meet my boss at the wit's end. You must seek and locate and destroy the source. He is causing an imbalance in the media. He's giving too much away.
He must be found. Must, you hear?
It must be secured at once.
I have sent many agents to seek and locate the source to the far corners of the globe. Looking, searching. They were the top Hoopet agents. None of them secured the source. And many agents have failed. And failure I do not tolerate. Failure means you are tortured, microwaved, atomized, spun, drawn, and ironed. I do not countenance failure.
Relinquish the source and die! You still do not know me.
Soon you will know me. Soon.
So, Sophie, it's just a question that everybody's asking. Are you the source?
HP or tomato?
Good question. Oh, good old Sophie had to get her. So anyway, that was the help in the early days about who is the source. Farsight, thank you very much. Around the end of the noughties in the DWM poll, it was revealed a majority of younger viewers said they preferred Classic Who. I see that in our own family. Me and Jamie see that they're in their teenage years and they're finding vinyl and they're finding the Kinks and they're finding 60s music. You know what this... If they think they've discovered it, that's it. And they're now discovering Dalek Master Plan. And they're all this. There was a kid in one of my English classrooms, and he sat there in my English class, and he was just starting to discover 70s Doctor Who. And we had amazing little chats at the end of each lesson. It was just lovely stuff. And I think as long as you don't ram it down their throats and they think they discover it themselves, you're on to a winner. Thank you for that, Farsight. I know what you're saying. Any more thoughts, Goldie, on what you've been hearing?
No, it just comes back to they should not be antagonizing any fans, but also what's even more ridiculous about it is that they're actually damaging their own careers by doing this. And I don't just mean in the way that we've all discussed before, but directly. Here's the thing, right? If RTD had come back and he'd had his views and had his politics, but just wrote some good Doctor Who, then the international audiences would have flooded in. Disney would have got loads more subscriptions. They would have been able to see that people were watching Doctor Who, same with BBC on the iPlayer, and they would have instantly commissioned more seasons. And then he would have been brought on to write more, to produce more. He would have got more money. So it's ridiculous. He thinks he's sticking it to us, but actually he's just pissed away truckloads of money that he could have had himself. He literally could have bettered his own life, and he went, no, I'd rather spend a quick 5 seconds just pointing fingers and calling people names. Ridiculous.
Yeah, and throughout all this what I call the woke era, how many times have we seen shows, not just Doctor Who, the others as well, where I always say this, I say, if you're going to push your diversity message, you've got to bring your A game. You've got to make sure that the characters are well developed. They're 3-dimensional. We care and invest in them. The arcs have got to be good for each story that you do. There's got to be a season arc that we're all invested in. None of that from any of them. It is all one-dimensional characters in a lot of these, where you can just literally throw them away and swap them in with someone else. And again, they push about they want this, that, and the other. The way to push your message is to write as good as you can possibly be. But I don't think these lot are. I think they're just phoning it in half the time.
Yeah, and that's what I've said. This recent era, I don't get the impression that anyone has tried. It's just been, right, we've got all this money backing us.
Yeah.
And they probably did think that, the audience will just accept it. We're going to get loads of ratings. It's going to work. They didn't put any thought behind it.
Yeah.
I think Goldie was cart before horse. I really do. I think that's why he compressed 2 seasons. You know, I mean...
Well, it was ego, wasn't it? Because not only did he compress 2 seasons, but they signed off on a spin-off before they knew if their product for the actual Doctor Who itself was going to be a success.
I mean, you know, if I know from talking to the media producer, if you're going to put a pitch to a company, you're not going to say, here, I've written the first 100 episodes. Why waste that time? Because you might as well have 1 or 2 episodes written or shown or however they do the concept. That's it. you writing off the first 100 episodes in, I've done the first 5 seasons. They haven't even said yes yet. Don't put cart before horse. So
Yeah.
because he wrote 2 seasons of Doctor Who, assuming what? That the audience were just going to lap it up. And then, of course, giving us a crappy Omega, a crappy Rani, a crappy Sutek. You didn't give us anything that we recognized. What you gave, and of course, we were all fearing Davros, weren't we? All fearing it. Now, Michael Nemo, thank you very, very, very much. Oscar winner Andy Weir, which obviously he was referenced earlier by John, asked to write for Trek because he was a huge classic Trek fan. But the showrunner turned him down because he knows classic Trek too well. And remember, John, in the when they were talking about season 1 and season 2 of Doctor Who, it was in one of the interviews, RTD proudly said, "We don't discuss classic Who on the set." And of course, this sounds similar.
It's exactly the same. There's been reports for a long time now. You know, there was another famous Hollywood screenwriter that went in to pitch for Star Trek under Kurtzman, and Kurtzman showed him the door, because the remit is, he said that Kurtzman has said he doesn't want anybody who knows Star Trek to come in, because he doesn't know Star Trek. He's not a fan, and he wants to push his version of what he sees as Star Trek. And he's done a video from during 2-3 years ago where he's basically said he's using Star Trek as a platform to push the message. So this is the problem. This is why Doctor Who and all of these other franchises, as Goldie said, the hemorrhaging viewers and people that loved what came before. And you know what? Constantly we keep hearing noise from the BBC, like they want to do this like CBeebies cartoon to try and drive, get new viewers into the show. Do you know how you get new viewers into the show? You actually write good stories and you actually have well-developed characters, and people will turn up for it. And do you know how I got into Doctor Who? My family, my parents had grown up watching Doctor Who, and they sat me down and they got me watching Doctor Who. And that's what a lot of parents did with their kids. Now, parents are like, that's not Doctor Who. I'm not going to watch that. I mean, the Church on Ruby Road, I gave it a chance. And what was it? Within the first 5 minutes, Shooty Gatwa's twirling around in a dress on the dance floor. Sorry, that's not Doctor Who at all. Straight away, that is somebody living their sexual fetishes in Doctor Who. That's my view on it. And it's just gone downhill from there.
I mean, I hear the other. I mean, I'm going to put the other viewpoint. If people won't come on the show today, I'll try my best. What I have seen said, John and Goldie, is there any merit in this? They've said, yeah, but every Doctor has a different version of the same persona. So basically, one Doctor might end up being gay. It's a different pattern. Now, I don't buy into the sexuality thing because the Doctor was asexual. So
yeah.
I think that's a cheat. Yes, one Doctor might be a bit more of a dandy. One Doctor might be more gadgets. One Doctor might be more morose. One Doctor might be more cheeky. I get that about personas, but I just think I can see what John's saying, because I agree with it, but it's not the same character. But their argument, John and Goldie, is that, well, because the Doctor's such an amazing characterization, you can basically do anything for one version.
Can I just say something before Goldie comes in on replying to that? I on the same researching today for Rtd'S Sifu, where she basically says, and I've heard this before from a fringe crowd, and they say that the Doctor is love. Can I just say that's absolute bollocks? The Doctor is not love. We see in classic Doctor Who, there's no reference at all to the Doctor being love. The Doctor does what he needs to do to save the day. We've referenced it. There's various stories in classic that highlight that point, and I won't bring them up tonight because I know we've talked about them quite a lot on this show in the past. But it's the nonsense of all of this keeps coming up. It's that they're twisting it to be their own thing. The Doctor is, like you said, he's asexual. That is something that should never be in Doctor Who, quite frankly. It should be. I'm not a fan, like like Goldie was saying earlier, you know, what they were saying in the chat earlier about, you know, River Song and the marriage and all of that. I wasn't a fan of that. It's just that every time, and again, I could swap out another franchise and you'll hear exactly the same sort of stuff said. And it's just, you know, they are just hollowing out what has gone before and they're going into it and it's almost like a zombie husk. They're going, look, we're Doctor Who, but it's not Doctor.
Don't worry, but I'm just trying to kind of bring that variety, you know, so we can enjoy a debate and lighten dark shades. We might think that, well, they're screwed up this era. They ballsed it up. So let's just have a bit of a light relief, but still Doctor Who. And just for a few moments, and then we'll go back to the debate and what Goldie thinks of what we've been saying. So here we go. Brendan's balls ups. Oh, dear.
Roll up, and see these funny little creatures in the native habitat. Watch them go through their funny little tricks. Poke them with a stick and make them jump.
Did you see where the balls up was, Goldie?
Not particularly.
Ah, John, did you?
I didn't actually know.
Oh, well, that means I better cue again. Look out for the arrow, everybody. This is where Brendan shows his balls up. And actually, I'll credit my husband. I was watching. I didn't notice.
This isn't going to go downhill badly, is it? That suddenly you add yourself in the second one nude or something like that.
I'd never, ever noticed this. But Jamie said, did you see? And I went, I didn't notice that. Here we go. Look out for the arrow, everybody. It's early on. You think it's called 4 to Doomsday. It should be more called 5 to Doomsday, or maybe The Lurker. Here we go. See? Who's that? There's a bloke behind the gadgets to work the gadgets. So when we see all this happen and he does the gun and that, and you've just got some gadgets bloke behind the scenes, but his head was too big.
I actually, imagine if it was Tom.
Directional cobalt flux.
I know. Sorry, Tom. You got to go.
This artifact is too primitive to defy my technology.
You don't work here anymore.
And when he says technology at the end, he does sound like Broton slightly there, I have to say. So, oh, well, there you go. So I'll send them in to me quietly, everybody. Brendan's balls ups, and we'll show a few. We all know the Sutek one and all the rest of it, but yeah, we need to lighten it up. So, Goldie, we were going to come back to you on the points in the debate. So, I was asking questions, and John answered. What were your thoughts?
It's just one giant case of just because you can do it doesn't mean you should. Like, for example, and I'll go back to the casting of Jodie Whittaker, right? Because I was a few years younger. This was 8 years ago, and I've never really grown up in sort of a political environment. So when Whittaker was announced, of course I knew, okay, this is different. But I didn't really think, because at the time I had no clue about any kind of messages or agendas or anything. So I just thought, okay, this is different. Let's see how it will go. And to me at the time, it made sense at the time. And I will get to that because I don't feel the same way now. But at the time, I thought, okay, the Doctor regenerates like all Time Lords and every cell in their body changes. So I thought, okay, it's plausible that the Doctor could change gender, right? But then as I started going through the Whittaker era, and we started to see what was happening, I came to the conclusion, okay, this didn't need to happen. Okay, based on the lore of Doctor Who, it can happen, but it doesn't need to. There shouldn't be a female Doctor because you can do shows with other characters. Like, for example, the Sarah Jane Adventures, right? Led by a woman, people love it. So it's not that people, it's not that people hate women. They just don't want the Doctor to be changed because the Doctor doesn't need to be changed. And the same thing with Ncuti Gatwa and him dancing around and there being a huge story about him fancying this guy Rogue. You know, it doesn't need to happen. You know, just because they can do it and they have, it doesn't mean it needs to. It's ridiculous. And going back to this whole point that some people raise about how each Doctor is supposed to be different. Yes, but you're still supposed to look at any of the other Doctors following Hartnell and believe that they are actually Hartnell underneath.
Yeah.
Right. There needs to be some foundations. There's this idea that, you know, you can be anything. Well, if you could be anything, then you're nothing, because there need to be some sort of foundations. You can't just radically change the character so much.
No.
Yes, the Doctor could be a bit more lighthearted in one incarnation and approach a situation different, but they shouldn't have completely different values and in some cases be real nasty.
But you see, but
Right.
Goldie, I can only say the truth as I saw it at the time. So when I wasn't doing YouTube shows and all the rest of it, and I was just a little Doctor Who fan, when I was watching the Invasion of Time episode 1, I was struggling as a little Doctor Who fan to like my Doctor because he was acting so different. He was holding a plot in his head, wasn't he? It was all a scam, as everyone knows from season 15. But I didn't like it really because I was confused what was going on. And that was still the Fourth Doctor with a scarf and everything. But I was uncomfortable. And that's within the same frame. Then you change the characterization completely. And like you're saying, Goldie and John, we're way off beam. Now, remember, everybody, I've got loads from the source. We haven't even really used him yet. We've just been using it as the backbone. But these three characters here in Lux, and I have to say, I'm going to ask you and John and Goldie, and I'm going to ask the thread. What version of the fandom are we getting here from RTD? Is it a love letter to the fans, a critique of the fans? Is it scathing of the fans? Is it a misunderstanding of the fans? Is it being ironic? It was part of the show, and it is tailored into the show, but I'll give you a, you know, if you didn't see it, I'll show you. And then, because I didn't see a representation of me as a fan out of those three. Anyway, here we go.
We need to go out.
What happens if we...
Gosh. Oh, that's it. I've got you. I've got you.
Oh my God.
Doctor, is that you? Are you?
We're your biggest fans. Oh my God. Oh, this is so Galaxy Quest. I knew it. I always knew.
I knew this would happen because it was leaked online.
And you sit and you watch me on the TV.
I've seen every single episode. But I'm so real.
Go on then. What's your favourite adventure?
Blink.
Blink. Every time.
Not the one with the goblins.
Blink.
Not the one where I am standing on a landmine.
It's the story where you're not allowed to blink.
God, you're so annoying. Lots of people say that. I didn't know. No, we are a bit annoying, I know that. We don't exist.
But no. We're the sort of characters who don't have surnames. They're just part of the trap so that creature can play with your minds.
Keep watching. You don't get it, do you? What?
They are not real.
Yeah. But we're not important.
And thanks to you, I met my two best friends.
Now go and save the world, Doctor. We love you so much.
There you go. I don't know if you saw that before, John or Goldie, but
I'm going to throw up.
Well, I've just seen people saying in the thread, cringe, David Harding. Oh my God, that's RTD's idea of what Doctor Who fans are like, or is it his Doctor Who fans? Graham says, I didn't see the second Gatwa season. Is this actually for real? Yes, it was real. I had to stare at that. It was part of the plot because it was Lux. He was the god of light. And you heard some of that. I was being very fair with my edits. That it was that they're not real. It's just trying to play with the Doctor's mind by trapping him as a cartoon and everything. But it's also a dig at the fans, taking the mick out of the fans, a parody of the fans.
It's desperate as well.
I mean, Goldie, what did you think was... it's an open question. Is it a love letter, a critique, a misunderstanding, a parody of the fans? What do you see there?
Well, Lux is one of the only episodes of Gatwa's era that I would consider rewatching and that I do actually feel somewhat positively about. I give it like a 4 out of 10, so nobody mistake that as me saying I love it. But that scene in particular... it's so different from the rest of the story. It does feel like it was filmed last minute and just thrown in there. And we know that RTD writes things now to generate content, and that was very much one of those things, I reckon. He thought, right, if we have the Doctor come out the screen and talk to a bunch of fans, that's going to get a lot of people talking on social media. And unfortunately it did, you know, and for all the wrong reasons, because that scene in particular is just, it's so weird, because I wouldn't say that those fans are anything like any of us. So it is RTD kind of showcasing his fans, but at the same time, they're saying hashtag RIP Doctor Who, which is something that our side does.
Yeah.
So he's kind of, in a way, trying to present all Doctor Who fans, but they're just done in this sort of stereotypical, it just sort of an ignorant version of what he thinks Doctor Who fans are like. I do seriously think he thinks Doctor Who fans are there dressed from head to toe in Doctor Who merch, watching all this stuff.
You see,
and
this is... Sorry, Gordy, I'll cut in and let you carry on, don't worry. But that's what I mean. Not every Doctor Who fan does cosplay. Not every Doctor Who fan is... You can be passionate and dress just, you know, normally and all the rest of it. And you know, did you notice one had the scarf, one had the fez, one had the Telos t-shirt? Can we just have somebody who just dresses normally? The other thing is, you mentioned the RRP doctors, if he was trying to reach out to everybody. It was the woman in the wheelchair, but she also had a bit of dialogue, and she said, I knew it was a conspiracy thing. I'd read it online. Now, you know, he has an issue with being online. He has an issue with Conrad Clark. He has an issue with fans who have plotting theory.
We don't exist. Bots as well is another thing that he says.
That's what I mean. Sorry, Goldie, but I just thought I'd cut in there because I've got an older brain.
No, that's fine. To me, those fans represent the sort of influencer culture type fans, you know, because a lot of them are, every time they talk about Doctor Who, they are just dressed head to toe in merch. They are just spewing out all these catchphrases to go, oh, look at me, I'm a Doctor Who fan. That's very much what I think. But I don't think that was his intention, really, because those are his type of fans. But no, yeah, that scene in general, it didn't need to be there. It's just so on the nose. It's there to generate content, as he said before. I really question what goes through that man's head. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, John. I'm gonna interrupt you because and get you in, but don't worry. K77, pure cruelty, a nasty dig at the fans. Mr. Wayne, that scene's befuddling. I can hear Goldie almost stuttering over his thoughts, going, I really don't know why they did that. Dalek Shalom, that was the best of that era. I will put everyone out. Zach Whitten, RTD2 lost his touch. Squinty Mint, the setup to Lux was the best part of it. The setup. Zach Whitten, Lux was okay as a story apart from that scene. So you can see people are not liking it. Sorry, John, I was just pulling in.
No, you're right. And again, in addition to this episode, there's the episode that you brought up as well, where he's having a dig at people online. So there's that theme that runs through that season of Doctor Who. So he is being critical of what he perceives as Doctor Who fans. And of late, he's gone even further with that, actually coming out and telling us categorically what he thinks, you know, and about kids being bastards. You know, they're growing up to be bastards. Yeah. So this all adds into the attitude of the guy. And it also said to me when I saw this was, how on earth is this guy getting money and getting signed off? Because he's clearly out of ideas. He's doing, this is the jump the shark kind of thing that you do. When you're in a failing show, you want to try and have some gimmick to try and bring people in. And that's what he does now. And it's awful. And I got to be honest with you guys. If Ncuti Gatwa came through my TV screen, I would tell him to bugger off and watching Deadly Assassin.
Yeah, because it's expensive 4K 80-odd inch 3D telly. You've bust the bloody thing.
And Ncuti Gatwa, in real life, Ncuti Gatwa would be going there. If I said to him, hi, Ncuti, nice to see you, he'd go, well, if you want to talk to me and get my autograph, it's 125 quid.
I tell you what, that's hey, John and Goldie, that's a way to be surprised by the license fee squad who are looking for those, they come out the screen at you. You don't pay your license fee.
And I was just going to say, guys, Dalek Shalom makes a good point there. He says, if you're hurt by it, he's won. I stopped being hurt by Doctor Who, several years back now. And it's a point with me when I just see it for a review purpose. It's laughable. It's awful. I mean, the irony of it is Russell T Davies and Phil Collins and co. I'm paraphrasing because I haven't got the exact quotes here, but they were critical and they were mocking the Sylvester McCoy era, the late 80s Doctor Who. They have gone well beyond. I love the Seventh Doctor era, but they've gone way beyond.
I don't feel as though it's hurt me. It was just a question, Dalek Shalom. No, it was just I'm bemused. I'm bemused why you needed to waste 4 minutes. I'm bemused when you have only 50 minutes of episode and it's the climax to a season and the last 12 minutes is Ruby going to a coffee shop to meet her mum. It's like...
But that's RTD.
Yeah, basically the death of Sutek is less important than 12 minutes of meeting your mum.
RTD, sorry, Goldie, I'll let you come in straight after this. RTD is all about spend the money on effects, crash, bam, wallop. Look what we've got on the screen.
Somebody else's money.
Yeah, exactly. With 5 or 10 minutes to wrap up the episode at the end. That's it. That's an RTD episode in the modern era.
Yeah.
That's it. So that's what he does. Again, over to you, Goldie, but that's my view on it. He's terrible.
I was going to say, if anything, this proves that not the fans are hurt, that RTD is hurt himself. He is an old, bitter man who is announcing to the world his frustrations by using Doctor Who. I mean, for a guy who says that he doesn't care about what is said online and how fans are talking, he clearly does, because nearly every episode of the Ncuti Gatwa era has some sentiment of the fandom reflected. It's clearly on his mind 24/7. And once again, I do want to draw a parallel to his first era, because in general, I think some aspects of his first era he's plagiarized for the second one. But also it goes to show how these sort of ideas are done differently now. So if you look back to Love and Monsters, which I get is not a fan favorite, I have defended it, but I'm not saying it's amazing. But there is one aspect of it I will defend, particularly in relation to how the fandom is treated. So in Love and Monsters, we get to follow these group of fans who have encountered the Doctor at some point in their life, and they've come together, and they are essentially surrogates for the fandom, right? But they are treated, I would say, actually, with respect, because they come together. They're not dressed in all sort of Doctor Who related merch. I know in Love and Monsters, the fans are in universe, so of course they wouldn't be, but they come to the group sessions and they talk about the Doctor, but then they hang out and they start bands and they do these other things. And it's that episode treats fans with respect, because it goes to show that they're more than just Doctor Who fans. They are people and they're going to grow together. Whereas this is very much all you think about is Doctor Who. You just throw catchphrases at the screen. You just do this. It's so ridiculous. There's no thought that's been put behind it. It's just RTD being angry and using his writing to shout at people.
Well, can I just add on to that? I agree 100% with Goldie there. He literally, it's like he's taken the words out of my mouth, because I feel exactly the same on it. But when you think of the money that this guy has had to produce Doctor Who, I always look back to someone that I've got a lot of time for. I loved his era, and it's Andrew Cartmel. And again, we know that he was doing Doctor Who on a shoestring at the time. You imagine what someone like that could do with the money that RTD has had, or any of the previous producers of Doctor Who, what they could have done with that Disney money. And again, Goldie nailed it earlier where he says, this is done without full effort. I think in RTD1 era, he had a point to prove. He was passionate. He was, like you said, Brendan, he was nervous, wasn't sure if it was going to be a success.
Yeah.
And all of that came together to make a great era of Doctor Who with good writers involved in it. In RTD2 era, the ego is completely out of control. He already believes, before he's even had it on TV, that it's going to be a knockout success. So he commissions a spin-off. And he goes out there and starts insulting the fans and the audience before it's even been put on telly. And his actors do as well. Now, that says to me as well, there is something rotten at the core, because I don't I don't care what production you're on, but if all of a sudden everybody pretty much that you're casting is having a pop at the fans, that's coordinated. That's top-down stuff. And that's part of the problem. And it's the same with Academy. It's the same with Star Wars.
Yeah, there is a circuit going on at the moment. I must admit. Gee, gosh, we're doing well considering that the source hasn't got a word in edgeways at the moment. David Harding saying, should Doctor Who fans care what RTD thinks of us? I don't. He's entitled to his opinion. I bring up RTD all the time because he happens to be running the blooming show that I love. I don't agree with what he's doing with storylines. I don't agree with some of his casting. I don't like the quality of some of the writers he's picking. I don't like some of the execution, the tone, the style, blah, blah, blah. I don't agree with some of his editorial decisions, like Davros suddenly now walks like he's been to Lourdes. Yeah. There's loads of stuff I'm disagreeing with, but it's playing the ball, not the man. I really don't care what he thinks of me per se, just like he doesn't give a damn if I exist or not. I'm bothered what he does to the program. And that's where my source came into it. And that's why he was triggered. So I'll give him a kick here, everybody, because that's what you've tuned into too. Although I know I'm getting value for money from John and from Goldie. So if you look at this is a big one. This is my source, remember everyone. Why would you want to see something be absolutely destroyed? That's why people don't watch Star Trek. Now, he was talking about Doctor Who, and then he brings in Star Trek. So when he says destroyed, he's meaning Doctor Who as well. The fans of Star Trek at this Starfleet Academy thing, they're heartbroken. I understand it because they've spent thousands of pounds supporting the show of their own hard-earned money. They've bought DVDs and Blu-rays. They've followed every show. They've paid for subscriptions to Paramount. They've bought the books. They've given their lives, their fan lives to this amazing franchise and supported it through its many iterations. But when it's been butchered and then the fans are insulted and told that they're the problem, well, we're not making it for you anymore. I mean, you know, John, this is a media producer, may I say, who has worked in TV, has worked on some of these channels.
Experienced.
Yes. Yeah. So we're not on our own.
No. And again, he brings up Star Trek Academy there, and he's absolutely right, because during my reviews of Star Trek Academy, I actually said it's that bad I could actually see Ncuti Gatwa's Doctor materializing on Academy, because these two shows, they're almost like running parallel. Everything that's happened, all the comments that have been directed at fans being toxic, all of the, oh, well, if you don't like it, get lost. But then it gets cancelled, and then suddenly it's the toxic fans' fault that it's been cancelled. I'll give you some quotes of Star Trek Academy. And again, this backs up the claim of this is an industry problem, that people involved are activists, not writers now. Because you've got Robert Picardo, who's a doctor in Voyager, holographic doctor in Voyager and Academy. This is his first thing he says, right? I'm going to read you two. There's Robert Picardo and there's Gina Yashir, who plays the Klingon Jem'Hadar hybrid. So he says, Robert Picardo says, long before the term existed, Star Trek's heart was woke. And even though the word has been hijacked and made a cudgel to insult, to ridicule, and at the toxic extremes of social media to justify prejudice and racism, Star Trek's heart is strong and still beating for those listening. Now, again, there are always idiots out there. I'm not going to deny the fact there probably are idiots that say stuff, but he's actively going out and trying to antagonize the fan base because, again, they're being critical of the show. They're not actually being critical of the people doing it. And then Gina Yashir, and she, as I said, she played the Klingon Jem'Hadar hybrid in Academy. When they got confirmed that it had been cancelled, she put out a video. Okay. And this is what she said in her video. I'm going to read it to you. And it says, I assume you've heard the news by now that Starfleet Academy is not going to be coming back for season 3. I am obviously gutted. I thought we made an amazing show. The first season was fantastic, and we just finished shooting season 2. And I can say season 2 is even better. We just kept building on that platform we made, and in my humble opinion, I think it was one of the best first seasons of Star Trek made. She then continues, but hey, the haters are going to come on here and disagree. but I'm not here to fight with you right now. I just want to say that it was an absolute honor and a privilege and a pleasure working in the Star Trek universe. I loved every second of playing Laura Fock. Almost said that wrong then. I'm glad I didn't have a drink there. And I'm sad that you're not going to get to see more of her story and the story of all the characters as we built them out. Obviously, the world is still not ready to hear the message of love, peace, infinite diversity, acceptance, the eschewing of violence and senseless wars, she continued. We're not ready to hear that message yet, and hopefully one day we will be, and Star Trek will be back stronger than ever. And she finishes it off where basically she says, and preferably with the same message and not completely whitewashed.
Well, can I just preferably butt in and say, actually, I watched it too. I was considering, as John knows, doing my own little daft reviews, but I was painfully enough watching the blooming thing. And what's interesting, John and Goldie, is they conflated 2 seasons in production as well before they got feedback. They've made 2 seasons. They get the feedback in season 1. It's tanked. Doctor Who season 1, season 2 made, season 1 tanked. Oops, we've still got season 2. Cart before the horse.
Yeah.
Complacency, arrogance. Fans aren't allowed to speak. I tell you what, the noun I hated there, John, was when she said the haters. No, love.
Yeah.
Change the word haters to the word viewers, shareholders. Sorry, John, on that screen there, the source is saying that we, the viewers, we, the fans, are shareholders. We have committed pounds, dollars.
They're custodians of the franchise. Exactly right.
How are we haters when we spend all our blooming money?
Well, this is it. And again, you hear the same old quotes coming out: love, inclusivity, diversity. Sorry, that's not Star Trek to me. And do you know what? When I grew up watching reruns of Star Trek, the original series in the 60s, I didn't give a stuff about the color of Uhura's skin. I didn't even know or care when I finally found out that George Takei was gay. I didn't care because they were well-written, developed characters. You had none of that in the Academy. And I will also say this mirrors Doctor Who, because, you know, with Doctor Who, the ratings were cratering when we kept getting the viewing figures and the AI when they eventually came out. Well, Red Letter Media, if it's to be confirmed, they're a big channel and they've got a source, and the source has come out and said they were only getting 40,000 views per episode of Star Trek Academy. So again, the petitions trying to bring it back have only got 25,000 in total. So it shows again, they're not haters and phobes that are not deciding, oh, well, we're just hateful people we don't want to watch. People rejected your show. Even if we put all of the fans of Doctor Who together, it still wouldn't be enough to get a show recommissioned. You need the general audience, and the general audience said no to Doctor Who, no to Star Trek Academy. That's it.
Yeah, sorry. Goldie, your thoughts? You've seen a big quote there. You've heard me and John go on a bit of a one. Goldie, your thoughts? You were talking about, you see some fans with all the memorabilia behind. You can see the source there saying, all these people who commit, they are obviously lovers of the franchise, not haters. She got it wrong. She's late. Was she a Star Trek lover years ago? But she just said, by the way, she's allowed to enjoy the work she does, but that's got nothing to do with slagging us off. So Goldie, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, across all these franchises, you do see them attacking long-time fans. And and this goes back to David's comment that he posted a few minutes ago, talk about why do we care what RCD thinks about us? And the reason is because if he just kept it to himself, that would be fine. And he's allowed to think whatever he wants. But these thoughts he has about fans are making their way into the show. We now have entire episodes where we have audience surrogates showing us in a negative light, because that's how he feels about us. He wants us to be showcased negatively in every aspect, and we're seeing that again with Star Trek as well. And
Yeah.
Oh, where was I going with that?
Yeah.
I love this, Goldie. I love this. I get this, and I'm in my 50s, so I'm really enjoying the
fact. I mean, again, when she says at the end of her video, we're not ready, because we still want, not completely whitewashed. Could you imagine the backlash if we suddenly said blackwashed? At the end of it, if we did a video about a cancellation of our show doing that. You see, this is what I find strange about these people. They're given tremendous opportunity with pretty much unlimited budgets to produce their shows, to write their shows, and they're cast to act in their shows. But yet, and that's a classic example of diversity. You're getting the opportunity and the freedom to be able to perform in those shows and to do these things. And yet, what do we get? The usual copy and paste narrative at the end of each show that gets cancelled again and again is, you're all hateful, racist, phobes. That's why it got cancelled.
They get the criticism in before the shows go out. That's what I've noticed. Crimpling the Bloom. The problem with modern Doctor Who and Star Trek was claiming that they're Doctor Who and Star Trek. If they'd been their own original thing, in other words, they'd been brave and courageous, come up with your own concept. Yeah, I get your point. PF, I can never do this right. Peter Venkman, they followed in Rtd's footsteps by writing and filming crap consecutively. There's no changes to be made because they've already decided what they had to be gold instead of fool's gold. Now, my source has only just started. He started with this. He then said, and he started to kind of really say, this is how they're talking. You fans, you horrible person that supported this franchise for 40 years or 20 years or 10 years. You racists, you sexist, bigoted, horrible, nasty people. And they're insulting the fans. It's the fans' fault. They're all toxic. What on earth is going on by allowing, and this is, what he was saying, by allowing the cast and showrunners to speak like that. And he said it's actually mind-blowing. Absolutely mind-blowing that you're at. And that's why I said, John, it's like you're talking to your shareholders. How would you, can you imagine a proper shareholders meeting, and in front of your shareholders, who you may not like, you say, I don't like what you're wearing. I don't like your attitude, but I like your money. You'd be grabbed off the stage and your boss would bloody
100%. This mate, this is why, and again, I've said many a time, my dad worked for the BBC for 30 years, and with the BBC now, I am 100% that they need to lose the license fee, because these people, they're spending license payers' money, they're putting out slop, they're sending out these messages, and they're being hateful in the same process to people that have been passionate and have been supportive of a show for, since its creation. And you're right, we're the people that we'll go to a con. We won't just get someone's autograph who's there for the day. We'll go along the stalls. We'll look at someone who's trying to sell some stuff from a small shop somewhere, and we'll find some trinket that we like that's from Doctor Who, and we'll pick it up and we'll take it home. And we'll buy the box sets, we'll buy the merchandise, or we did before it became tat. And we will do that. The audience that they're trying to push this towards is like under 1%. It's being proved again because the viewing figures are not there.
Yeah.
So again, I work in insurance. Again, if I go and see a client, my client, if I suddenly say to him, well, it's great to see you today, but to be honest with you, you're a hateful, disgusting phobe. I'm sick of seeing you. That's it. I'm binned off in 30 seconds. And then, this, the customer was always right. That was always the business thing to say. But it goes the same way with this industry. Entertain. Don't try and indoctrinate. And I don't know if we'll ever come back to entertain and get rid of the message anymore. I
think the perfect analogy is you've got a shopkeeper and he's standing outside the shop and everyone who walks past, he says, right, do you want to come in and buy something? And if that person says no, then he goes, right, F off. You don't do that, because then that person will go away and say, I've just had a negative experience with this shopkeeper. And then it's the exact same thing in an online sense when we talk about these shows, and they wonder why they get so much bad publicity and reputation. And I do remember what I was going to say a minute ago, which is that the reason I am put off by a lot of these people who, you know, criticize us for simply pointing out the issues we have with these shows is because they misrepresent us. As much as they talk about representation, they misrepresent us. No one is an ist for wanting Isaac Newton to look and sound like Isaac Newton in Doctor Who. If a historical character or a historical person's going to be shown in this show, which is partly educational, they want it to be accurate. They want the casting to be accurate. And I'm sure that there will be some people who are far more conservative who will disagree with me here, but I have no problem with strong female characters. The only thing I've ever asked is that in order to have strong female characters, you don't feel the need to put down the male characters.
Yes.
Have both of them working together. Both of them can be capable. Both of them can be very smart and physically strong, but you don't put down one to prop up the other. And so that's what I have a problem with when they say you're a sexist. No, I have no problem with this female character, but you're making all the male characters look like a joke. Don't do that. If you don't do that, I'll be fine. So again, it's the misrepresentation of us. Part of me thinks that, right, some of them probably are in their echo chamber, so they're not really looking at our criticisms. But then some of them, I'm sure, because I don't see how, when we've made it clear time and time again, they must be going, right, they're saying this, let me try and spin it to make it sound like they're saying something else.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, there's so much to say there. So, just for a second, is it because we fans are that collateral damage? You can kick us in, you can laugh at us, you can scoff at us, because in the wider media, and my item here for a second as light relief, same topic, more from the source and more from the lads, I've called it the Celestial Joker. So if you see this is from a sitcom of ours a few years ago on what they think of Doctor Who fans. You get the vibe. You just get it. Here we go. Enjoy. I'll see you on the other side.
I've got this fan club screening of my Doctor Who episode this week. What can I do to look younger?
Not go. Freddie needs a new coat for his Doctor Who screening.
Aptly, I have been voted the 10th most popular villain of all time. Does something like that even mean anything?
Dunno.
Of course it means something.
Which villain did you play?
I don't want to talk about it anymore. Everybody go home. Everybody who's anybody's going to be there.
Who exactly?
Doctor Who. Oh, God. That Doctor Who episode, I never dreamt it would become one of the most iconic roles of my career.
Or only.
Oh, is this a television program we're talking about, or a book?
It's a television program. What's the matter with you? We're all invited to the screening.
Oh.
Will there be a lot of single men?
It's a science fiction fan club event. They'll be single, but they'll be disgusting.
I am very proud of you. 10th most popular villain.
It was last week. You're in charge of the diary. Your fault.
Who said it was this week?
Well, I've got a lot going on.
Exactly. I mean, John, I'm going to have this segment now and again, everybody. And if you've got any thoughts on where Doctor Who's referenced, so that was on Vicious in about 2017, 2018. Basically, we're all obscene, we're all single, we're all you can see how we depicted we're a joke.
Yeah, 100%. It's again, I think Doctor Who fandom, Doctor Who in general, it's more a joke than it's ever been in its entire existence by people that aren't Doctor Who fans. I've said before about, do you remember the late 80s where it was so low, late 80s, early 90s, when Paul Daniels was linked to be the next Doctor, you know, in the newspaper and the tabloids, and it was really low because they thought the quality of it that's the kind of caliber that you get in. Not that Paul Daniels wasn't a great entertainer, but you would have been a terrible doctor.
Yeah.
And now I think just with these shows, I don't think they're coming back, because I've said it before. We need to get back to a time when politics doesn't have to be disclosed, what your political affiliation is, whether you're left, whether you're right, that doesn't come up. It's just, are you the best person for the job? And if you're the best person for the job, and I've said many a time, if you're going into a writer's room, you need to have people disagreeing and have creative tension so that you create gold. And we haven't had that. Look at Rtd's hires for, his 2 seasons of RTD2.
I'm just wondering, with that, when you see that vicious sketch, Goldie, for example, you've got here after gone, I can't say your name. Unfortunately, we've always been a joke. Remember the Talking Anorak? I do. Although you look quite cool, the Talking Anorak in the 90s. But Goldie, is it fair game that we are a joke, that we are seen as weird, we are seen as outsiders? Me and John particularly know this from when we were in school, and Doctor Who was not, wasn't cool, and so that's the joke. But now we're getting told to shut up and get out, and we're being scoffed at again by people who claim they were the outsiders like us. RTD, in his documentary and in The Writer's Tale, talks about, Doctor Who was for the outsiders. Doctor Who was for people, the misfits and all the rest of it. He says, like me. And now he's joined the establishment, and his scripts are slagging us off, ridiculing us. I mean, Goldie, do you see how I'm fascinated by this? The wider media always laugh at Doctor Who fans. So I understand the vicious bit a bit. But does it turn you off wanting to, because you want to be a Doctor Who fan? Does it kind of turn you away?
Well, the situation's reversed since like the 90s, for example, because back then the BBC looked down upon Doctor Who, but the fans were still supporting it. But now we're in a place where, because they've completely and utterly changed Doctor Who to what they want to prop it up, and they're literally forcing it at us, even though barely anyone's watching, and we're the ones who view it as a joke. So it's a case of, back in the day, I wouldn't have said that Doctor Who's a joke. But now, because it's been flipped and perverted, I do think it's a joke, and I do think it should be mocked. And we are seeing that, again, like when the wilderness years started, even though we're not in an official wilderness years, again, we are seeing people start to be more comfortable with coming out and saying, hang on a minute, the past few years, they have been an absolute joke.
Yeah. I love the way I've got all these people. I mean, good to see you, everybody. Doctor Who Dwarf. We are not jokes when we spend money on Manchester. Oh, I know. That's why I mean, we are the collateral damage. You can keep kicking. We're the props you can keep messing with. I do think it's abusive, and that's what the Source thinks. He's a media producer who really doesn't think you should be treating the fans like this. So, for example, as you know, Disney also agrees. Let's just remind you, Disney left for a multitude of reasons. One of them was RTD and the BBC were accused of, by Disney, creative overstretch and deaf to audience feedback. Disney, look at their data. They offered the data to RTD and the BBC. They didn't want to listen. They didn't want to tinker and change and adapt to what the data was saying. In other words, as I say, Goldie and John, they didn't want to listen to the fan feedback.
Well, again, that just shows a cultist ideology, because you're being given data that's basically saying you need to change course because this is not working. And you're like, right, okay, no, I'm going to keep sending my message out there, and I will crash this ship into the iceberg. That's the mentality. They don't care, and they didn't care about saving Doctor Who or to make it better. All they cared about was the message that they wanted to push out. And again, we're finding it with these franchises now. They go scorched earth with it. they do stuff to the franchises where they're like, well, if you're not going to like our version of Doctor Who or our version of Star Trek, we're just going to burn it to the ground. And that's what they've done. You know, I still think both of them are in very serious danger of not being able to come back because of the damage that's been done to them.
And that's my source. I mean, you texted me yesterday, texted me today as well. I'm a lucky boy at the moment. But he was saying, we haven't heard much from the about the Christmas special, have we, Brendan? And I said, no, we haven't. Should I read into that? Of course, he said, and I did ask him, everybody, Christmas special. He said, I said, when's the last minute they can start making it? Because clearly they haven't started. And he said, to be honest, by about May, June, they need to have started filming. So we will, as you know, they can't keep a secret in Cardiff. So he said, May, June, if you haven't heard anything, there's a problem. And they need to be wrapped up by September to then add all the special effects. I was working out with the source. I said, if you've got the unit set, the TARDIS interior, that LED screen, there's a lot you could do in a closed set that's not seen. Wouldn't look that good, but you know what I mean? You could.
Yeah. Can I also say, mate, you know, well, two things really. The first one is on a positive. Obviously, I'm a big Stargate fan, as you know, but just look at the way that the production team are interacting with the fans of Stargate now. What did they do with Stargate coming back? They announced that they were coming back on a dual stream with two YouTubers who were basically there from pretty much the beginning of Stargate, and they kept things going with their websites and their Stargate channels, and they basically announced it live on their channels, and they said, this is a show that's everybody's welcome. We won't ignore the previous history of Stargate. If you love Stargate, you can come into it. If you're brand new, it's going to be for you as well. The message there is bang on. It's basically saying this is for everybody. You're not getting straight away, well, you're clearly a phobe, get lost. That's the difference. Yeah. And I really hope that certainly in the US, there's a mindset change with execs now where they're basically going, do you know the last decade where we've been telling fans to get lost? It didn't work, did it? Let's go back and welcome them in.
Well, look, YouTube shows it. Hello, I keep interrupting anybody who's on my panel because I try and bring the thread in. But you do that on your channel, John, as well, because you know for a fact they're your shareholders. They're your followers. They're your supporters. Now, what we do in a minor, smaller scale is exactly what TV producers should be doing. So, Dalek Shalom, I give you your voice. I'm only a fan of what I like and appreciate. My main issue with Bad Wolf is their hate for British values and traditions, which ultimately affects the show. It was a lovely British show. The more I think about Doctor Who, the formula is genius. And do you know what? They haven't freed the formula of Doctor Who. What they've done by thinking they can be as free as they want is they've imposed lots of parochial stuff on it. In other words, if the Doctor is asexual and is an alien and we really don't know much about him, there's a lot of flexibility. Once you make him act human, think human, fancy that woman over there in a skirt, you've made him very, very limited.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you've done to the franchise, you prats.
And can I add, before sort of Goldie comes in, a quote as well, and this is Star Trek Academy, mate, but this ties in with what you said about limiting the character. There's two things. This is from Kareem Dayan, who is the gay Klingon Jaden in Star Trek Academy.
Well, of course.
Yeah. So the first quote he says, season 2 is gay AF. We know what that is. And I have so much BTS, again, someone else could tell me what that is, I don't know, content coming your way. Please prepare to be sick of me. I'm going to be even louder and more annoying about this beautiful gay Klingon. We're going out in flames. Then he says, when haters or angry people attack me on the internet for something that they don't know the truth about because it has never come out of my mouth, I realize that it has nothing to do with me. Fair enough. It is rooted in racism, homophobia, and sexism. These negative things have nothing to do with me. They knew that I would be met with a lot of heat. That's what he said about when they said, oh, you're going to be a gay Klingon. Well, how about you write a well-developed character that people are invested in? there were characters in Star Trek, the earliest previous generations of shows, and in Doctor Who that I consider diverse. There's characters in Stargate that are fantastic. It's like they think that it's brand new. We've never had it before. One of my favorite characters is Cisco from Deep Space Nine. He's a black captain. He's fantastic. He's well written. He's well acted. He's superb.
John, can I just say before we all forget, because we're trying to defend ourselves, science fiction fans tend to be the most tolerant, open-minded, imaginative, respectful out there. We are not the ones who imposed limitations on what's on the screen, as you was just saying with those that you like.
Yeah.
We've always seen pioneering stuff. We applaud it. That's why we like sci-fi. It makes no sense to then suddenly say we're the problem.
Yeah.
The problem might be out there. I'm anti-racist. I'm anti a lot of the things. So I'm on their side regarding that. Who's not? The thing is, you're taking on the wrong crowd. Science fiction fans are not the dinosaurs. Science fiction fans are not the toxic brand.
I've never
taken us on.
I've never had a problem with diversity, and I've said this many a time. I have a problem with forced diversity. If it's a character that's well developed that I can go on the journey with, I'm happy with it. Again, DS9, we had gay and lesbian relationships in Star Trek. We had episodes that talked about certain themes. I have no problem with that if it's well developed. But what we're getting now is, as I said, copy and paste characters that you could literally throw into any of these shows and they would be there for 5 minutes and they're gone again. That's what I've got a problem with. And that's why, but again, if you say it like RTD is coming out and it's saying, well, you're a hateful person, no, we're being critical of what you're doing.
We're being critical because we were there first, mate, and we were the ones who were all for the inclusion in sci-fi, idiot.
Yeah.
So before I bring Goldie in, I haven't forgotten him. Me and John are on one of our little moments. Dirty Davros, that's a good name. Fandom was known as the most tolerant group of... Well,
is he lap dancing now that he's got legs?
No, I imagine him in that little commode and it stinks. Fandom was known as the most tolerant... Well, we've got that HMS Dragon and it's had to go into port because obviously the loser bust. So Dirty Davros, he's got the same sanitation problem. Fandom was known as the most tolerant group of people and the group that would tolerate the message that nobody else would listen to. Hear, hear. Thank you, Dirty Davros. We were the ones.
Yeah.
We were the vanguard. Doctor Who Dwarf, a big problem with New Who, amongst others, is that it's too present. I think the moon base is relevant then and now. Ambassadors of Death, that's more relevant now than all the crud that's been on the telly in Doctor Who in recent times.
Yeah.
Tomboy Chick, hey, Wendy, we've lost the fans. We need to find them again. Meanwhile, the fans have no intention of being found. Oh, we've all run to the hills because of the way we've been treated. Says there was no audience. They were making it for themselves. I think many a true point. Yep. PB777, Classic Who had 1 or 2 stories set on Earth each season. Now everything is set on current day because that's where they feel safe. I know. I'm just going to get a few more in and I'll come to Goldie, who I'm sure will have plenty to say. Or Bad Wolf made the Austen ripoff. Mary Bennett, the dull prig, complains her mother says the only thing for her to do is to try and marry. It's society that's dictated this, but they've made Mum the villain. Dalek Shalom, the people who have done this to the show are the angry haters, surely. Yes, exactly. Well, they've vandalized it. That's what they've done. Now, I was nearly going to say Goblin. While that these people don't realise Doctor Who was always political, good on complaining about a fine character. Squinty Mint, people talk about making the character human being the problem, but the real problem is they've tried to make the character contemporary and parochial and limited and therefore reduced. Over to you, Goldie.
So, someone in the chat earlier said something that I've actually been pondering on, and because I think it is very valid, is that a lot of these problems started when we started to see all of these genre franchises trying to be pushed to normies. So as a result, they had to lower the sci-fi, lower the fantasy, because they wanted all the normies involved. And if they have all the complicated sci-fi stuff, that's going to turn off a lot of people. And I think everything in the past few years has been a culmination of that. But also, I do think in some ways the industry is trying to respond and in many ways trying to save face based on everything that's happened in the past few years. Because if you look a couple of weeks ago, the Buffy the Vampire Slayer revival got cancelled. Now, that was a very unique case because unlike a lot of these shows in the past few years, they made a pilot, which was unheard of for many years. And then they looked at the pilot and said, we don't like this, cancel it. So I think we're starting to see that now. We're not going to be seeing a lot of these streamers instantly commissioning 2 seasons. I think they're going to go, right, if you've got this idea, we're going to approve it, make 1 episode, then we'll see. And if we like it, then we'll order more. And that's what they should be doing again.
And Goldie, you're absolutely right on that. And one of the main reasons as well is because they're hemorrhaging money. You know, that's why studios are being acquired, because they are running out of cash and very, very quickly. You know, that Buffy story, you're right. I mean, again, the leaked script for that first pilot episode of the Buffy reboot was shockingly bad. I'm not surprised they cancelled it and binned it off early, but I'm glad we're seeing that. And I think you're right. I think we're going to see a lot more pilots being announced from Hollywood, because they just can't, unless they're absolutely confident on it, they can't give them the free cash anymore to just go off and do whatever they want.
And like I was saying earlier, there's this I think these past 10 years have been this sort of grand experiment to try to get new viewers, because I do think that there is some logic to how they were approaching this. They thought, right, what we're going to do is we're going to ultimately change these franchises and we're going to make them appeal to a normie audience. And they thought, okay, we're going to get all those normies who wouldn't dare touch sci-fi or fantasy. But now we've seen that they've alienated both the fans of these franchises and the people who wouldn't have watched them anyway. So they're going, right, we really need to go back to basics.
Goldie, you can see an analogy with what they've done with Doctor Who and other franchises like Jaguar. Remember that new car? Remember that advert? Remember those freaky people in the advert? They forgot about the people who bought Jaguars.
Yeah.
Middle-aged people with a bit of a weight problem, executives. There weren't people with weird hairstyles and cutting-edge fashion. They forgot. Now, and I see what you mean, Goldie. Yes, always push forward, of course. Find your new generation, but you can't assume you're keeping your old ones. And where RTD got too complacent is he thought, do you know what? I think I can have both. I can grab the new fans with all this messaging, and the old fans, I'll give them Sutek. But you didn't.
No. And again, I'm going to give you a quote from Russell T Davies and Ncuti Gatwa from April the 25th, 2024 in their Variety interview. Okay. And you'll like this, everybody, because they say, right, as for how long this new era of Doctor Who will last, Gatwa says he's not going anywhere soon. And Davies adds that he's already making plans beyond the initial 2-season order. No matter where this foray into the Whoniverse goes, Davies is sure of one thing. In Gatwa, a star has been born. I can sit here utterly certain that in 5 years' time, he'll be a leading movie franchise and security will be holding me back as I go. He promised me a ticket, Davies says with a chuckle. So, how did that quote go for you, Ncuti Gatwa and Russell T Davies? How's it panning out?
It's a bit like when a wet dream meets a kind of reality. It's kind of, excuse me. So
how's Comic-Con going, Ncuti?
So my source continues. Sorry, source, you're not getting a word in edgeways tonight. The thing is now the audience is just not there. And Starfleet Academy has proved that. Oops. They're making these shows for audiences that aren't showing up. Now, one of the reasons is Disney felt as well, not just us, Disney felt that Doctor Who was too niche and it isolated audiences. It put them off. And I've got all the data I flashed up earlier that I will be doing a show on that. Remember Dead Ringers? The BBC took the mick out of itself saying Doctor Who died of cringe. Remember that one? Global audiences collapsed and were unimpressed with Doctor Who. Remember when I showed you this? The last episode, everybody, the reality war. Look at it. At 6:50, it had 2.2 million. By the end of the show, the climax, this well-written climax, we'd lost we'd lost to how many? 761,000. We'd gone down to one. Tell me what show loses that many fans in 1 hour. That doesn't make any sense, especially when it's the climax. And of course, it doesn't make any sense. It just gets worse. Mark Gatiss, I like him. He says nostalgia's a great enemy. And then he blames us, the grumpy old Doctor Who fans. You think it's part of the reason we're in this mess with Doctor Who.
Is this the same Mark Gatiss who's gone into Doctor Who to play several different roles, and a lot of them are about nostalgia in Doctor Who?
Yeah.
Could it be that guy?
And all of his performances are the same characters he'd play on the League of Gentlemen. Always the same cringy, soft-spoken character. I like him as a writer. I hate him as an actor.
Yeah.
I do not think he's a good actor whatsoever.
Well, let's weaponize it. No, he says weaponize nostalgia. Nothing's as good as it used to be. Sorry. Or screeching of brakes from Brendan. Excuse me. I'm going to say it one more time, and then I'm going to prove it to you. Weaponize nostalgia. Nothing's as good as it used to be. Oh, really? Well, nearly everybody out there has done this, and so has me and the Detox crew. We were looking at Dalek Master Plan, and we reacted. And when we watched it, we just lamented, God, this is better than anything we've seen for years. Sorry, Mark Gatiss.
So I was
just going to show the live reactions first, because let's see a bit of proper Doctor Who then. We're all going to look as though we could be putting her home, but
that was absolutely sensational.
That was great.
Yes, the mineral agreement with the fourth galaxy proved a little more.
The Sense Sphere gathered to react to classic Doctor Who.
I tell you what, these.
Sorry, when you get Starlink, when you upgrade, if a plane goes overhead, this is what happens. So something weird happened then. So I'll try it one more time, because it do a double whack then.
It kind of it came back and then it paused again. Yeah,
and then you got two voices in one and stuff.
I didn't. It just froze for me.
Oh, okay, I'll try again. We're all going to look as though we could be putting her home, but
that was absolutely sensational.
No, it's gone weird. So there you go. That's the beauty of upgrading, everybody. You can try your best, but it don't work. Yes.
Can I address Mark Gatiss's comment? Because I do think it's such an easy way to divert blame, going, right, you're just older now. Nothing's going to be the same as it was because you're older. You view things differently. Okay. In some ways, that is true. Like, for example, I'm never going to be hiding behind a cushion because of a Doctor Who monster again. That's just not going to be the case, right? Because I am older. But when it comes to us actually methodically breaking down how Doctor Who cannot move forward, how it's just relying on the past, how there aren't really any interesting new monsters for the younger children to be invested in, how everything behind the scenes just screwed up this show from the release at midnight and then they moved it to 8 a.m. as if that was any better. There are some legitimate objective things wrong with the show. And unless they address those things, this is just going to continue. People will be complaining because they haven't fixed the problems.
Yeah, and to come on to what you said, Goldie, with Gatiss in this comment here, so by his argument then, people who are watching the John Pertwee era didn't enjoy Tom Baker's era of Doctor Who then, which arguably is some of the finest Doctor Who that's ever been made. So it completely destroys his argument, doesn't it? You know, if you're moving into a new era and it's a massive success, it works. And it's all about the writing. And we've had poor writing.
Well, let's try one more time, because Jamie's telling me it seemed fine out there. My restream sometimes does. So yes, proper Doctor Who, weaponized nostalgia. We're lying, even when we've just seen it. I'm not sure. we're all going to look as though we could be putting her home. But
that was absolutely sensational.
That was great.
Yes, the mineral agreement with the fourth galaxy proved a little more.
The sense sphere gathered to react to classic Doctor Who.
I tell you what, these opening credits are still the best. I'm 6 years old again. I think a little bit of wee just came out.
Join them.
Look at that shot. That's an incredible shot. I was going to say, I've always considered Planet of Evil's jungle set to be my favourite jungle set, but boy, this is really trying to bump it off the top pedestal, this jungle set.
Live reactions.
Oh, I mean, standing that. Absolutely. That's a hell of a clip.
I shall have to land somewhere.
Spanning everything here. You're not joining the dots. I'm really loving this.
I'm not dead yet. Don't fool yourself.
I love the fact they're taking their time for world building.
Hey, bring up the sound. It's Mavic Chen. Holiday.
Hey, what's wrong with Paul Juice?
Did we like it?
This is when the Daleks were still scary, and the height of Dalek mania.
Everything is ready.
I tell you what, these opening credits are still the best. There's an air of mystery that the other ones just don't have.
I'm getting the buzz. I am getting it.
Yeah.
So there you go. Weaponized nostalgia. No, I'm sorry. In 2026, knowing what production values are like out there, because I watch telly every night, I still think Dalek Master Plan has it. Terry Nation. Oh, wasn't he dissed for a while? And yes, doesn't he have it as well? So nonsense. What Disney said, John and Goldie, was this. Disney was concerned about tonal consistency and narrative quality. And with Dalek Master Plan, there was no tonal inconsistency and there was no poor narrative quality. That's the difference, Goldie.
Yeah, the RTD2 episodes, most of the time, things just kind of happen. There really is no connective tissue between anything. It all just goes at a rapid pace. The conclusion just comes out of nowhere. No one really understands what's going on. I remember when they released those deleted scenes from seasons 1 and 2 of the RTD2 era, and a lot of those deleted scenes actually explain what's going on in the story, but they deleted them. I remember when I was looking in the comments when they released those videos, everyone was like, why did they cut this? This would have explained this. Oh, I was confused about this, but this explains it. It's just total recklessness. There's just, as I say, I just think there's no thought going into this, or the things that are being thought about are the things that shouldn't be. Like, for example, how can we have a dig at the fans? How can we, do such and such?
I agree, 100%. And again, like you find in a lot of these things now, and RTD's era in particular, RTD2 era, is he's focused on, right, how can I push my diversity in it? That's the primary objective. Then the secondary objective is to come up with a story. That's it. The story has to work around his ideological agenda.
And if you
that's
remember,
why it's failing.
And if you remember, Russell said that often with him, the first draft is the only draft. Well, that explains it then.
100%.
The first draft should not be the only draft. But I think he started to believe his own hype because everyone in the industry tells him that he's the greatest thing ever and that he's the best writer of the 21st century and he's this revolutionary guy. And so he believes that and he thinks he cannot write anything that is less than perfect.
Yeah.
And I think when he was asked to come back, remember, he said that the main thing that really put the idea in his head for him to come back was those tweet-alongs during lockdown where they were going back over the older episodes. But then he said that the BBC came to him and said that they viewed him as a safe option to secure Doctor Who for the streaming future. And I think he really allowed that to go to his head. Oh, they think that I'm going to protect Doctor Who? And so I think he then, the next step was, oh, Doctor Who is mine. I can do anything. And I really think he's just allowed all of this to consume him.
Yeah. It's you know what hubris is. I mean, here the source said to me this. Look at this. This is the BBC. They're aware there's a toxicity going on about the show. They associate it with the show. So they associate the noise as those crazy fans. They don't look at the fan feedback. So in other words, because they dismiss us, remember, John, you quoted Gina from Star Trek and she said we're the haters. As soon as they have labelled us we are no longer listened to. And this is the master plan. Never mind the Dalek one. They associate toxicity, which is, they might think society's collapsing out there. But like I said, they think the sci-fi fans are the baddies. So they say that toxicity is us, that we're the crazy fans, therefore we won't listen to you. And this is why Disney, he said, was so frustrated with them. They said, you're not looking at what the audience is saying. And they said, well, the audience is crazy. They're all nuts. They're phoning on the switchboard and say the doctor pressed the wrong button on the console. They're lumping all the fans into one great big toxic world, which suits Russell and Jane because they can just say, the fans are nuts. Don't worry about them. We're the sensible ones in the room.
Yeah. Completely agree with what the source has said there. That's what they're doing. That's what they've done for a long time now. And even though they've tanked it to potentially never being able to return because of the damage they've done, they still won't listen to it. I have said before, I have no confidence of Doctor Who coming back unless they take at least a decade away and they retcon Jodie Whittaker onwards. And that's not going to happen because they don't have the will to do it. And the trouble you've got with the BBC now is they will find other things to think that that's the problem. They know what the main issue is. It's the woke diversity, not cobblers that they're putting into the shows, but they won't fix that issue. They'll say, right, we're going to try it again with this, or maybe if we go have a female doctor next time again, but we'll get this high caliber female actor to play the role. No, none of that works unless the scripts are tight, the scripts are strong, and you chop out all of the ideology, because whether they like it or not, we're actually at a point now where the general viewer is, the majority of them have had enough of it.
Well, I have with everything. Squinty Mint, by the way, is just saying, who specifically is a they in the source's quote? The BBC executives. It's not Bad Wolf, it's the BBC executives. But basically, remember that Jane Tranter and Julie Gardner in their first iteration were BBC. So there's the same kind of thought process going on in what they're thinking here. Goldie, I ain't forgotten you, don't you worry. I'm just saying that even then the BBC have even allowed complaints about Doctor. So, you know, 1 minute they're saying we're the nutters like in Vicious who go on about the 10th greatest villain and all the rest of it, and we're all very single and all a bit strange and we're all nuts. We're all nuts. And then he says, you know, the phone in about, you know, the doctor pressed the wrong button on the console, as if we just kind of totally obsessively, you know, stuff about the little details. But then the BBC suddenly show people saying, I don't like the messaging in Doctor Who. And so the BBC are reporting on themselves. So suddenly it's not just about the button being pressed on the console. It's about what you said at the very beginning, Goldie, which is interesting because you're early 20s. I'm double your age and a bit before. But even I cringe watching an episode of Doctor Who, says this person who wrote in. And the BBC thought they should show the complaint. A bunch of memes telling us that white straight men are the source of all evil in the universe is what they see as Doctor Who. Now it has just become an intolerant program condemning most of its viewers simply for existing. It does feel like you're being lectured to. Over to you, Goldie.
Yeah, it's that entire era is just a pastiche of what they think their opposition is like. Now, I think, John, you haven't seen any of the Gatwa era, certainly not the second season. One of the opening lines of the Robot Revolution, which is the season 2 opener, is it's literally a guy and his girlfriend, who ends up being the new companion, sitting on a bench, and he goes, I know girls can't do maths. Come on, when has anyone ever said it? It's just so ridiculous. Like, it's the most exaggerated, nonsensical version of what they think, how people speak. I just can't stand it.
Unbelievable. I mean, again, like you say, funnily enough, on a different subject, I was talking to Mum yesterday, and she was watching a show, and it was a BBC show. I forget which one it was. It's one that's just come out. And she says, they're talking about this certain situation, but the facial expressions and the interaction between the two of them, she said, it's completely false, that people just don't do that in real life. And again, this is the trouble. from what you've said there, it's like these are people that I think I'm actually at a point now where I think they're not capable of writing at that high caliber now for science fiction. So they dumb it down. So they're actually, when they put stuff in like that, they're basically treating the audience as idiots. And certainly the ones they're pushing, which is the TikTok crowd, they think they're idiots. So they dumb it as low as they can possibly go.
If they wrote a sci-fi story set in space in 2020 to 2247, they could have any character they want, and nobody can say it's authentic or not. Once you set it on modern day Earth, we can read into the politics, we can read into whether they're stereotypes, we can read into whether they are delivering the lines well enough or whether they're just messaging. I'll just get a few lines in. Sorry, BB, I walked away from Doctor Who after Jodie's first season. I think a lot of people refuse to accept how disappointing New Who has been overall. Tomboy Chick, we all know that big organizations mark their own homework, and of course they think everything's fine, no errors or mistakes. Do you know what? Disney's had an awful lot of criticism from a lot of us before we saw what Doctor Who was under them, but they left because they didn't like what it looked like. In other words, it had nothing to do with them. It was the arrogance and complacency and that kind of view. There is a view nowadays by people in power, whether it's the top of the NHS, top of government, wherever, that we want your votes, we want your money, but we're not going to listen to a word you say. That's what goes on now. How can you be a public service broadcaster and you don't want your viewers to have a voice? You pretend to have a voice. Look at the Doctor Who magazine. If I wrote into the Doctor Who magazine tomorrow with a critique, would they really show it? Nah, it's become a propaganda rag.
Yeah.
It's ironic, seeing as the BBC are peddling out these advertisements saying this is your BBC, this is our BBC, and it's like we have no input in any of this, because anytime we do try to tell you what we think, you just dismiss it and misrepresent it.
Exactly. Sorry, I know John's PB.
Right.
He's beating you to it every time. Chibnall hired writers with 2 years in the business and never wrote sci-fi. That's my problem. I can see you need to bring in new blood. I don't think Doctor Who's the brand for new blood anymore. I have to say, Philip Hinchcliffe was 26, 27, but he was working in the BBC. Verity Lambert was young, but she was working already in the BBC, had been at the ABC. You know, these weren't newbies. These worked.
Well, the trouble you got is it gets even worse than that, because you go to RTD2 and you've got writers that RTD brought in. They are pure activists. You know, one of them trying to sell a book in Ireland of actually including where kids can go and meet gay people. You know, this was someone that RTD knew about the backlash of it and brought them in onto the show anyway. Now, at any other time in Doctor Who's history, that wouldn't have happened at all. I was watching the season 21 box set last week, and I was looking at Resurrection of the Daleks, and I was watching the extras, and they were talking on the extras, one of the writers or producers, and they were talking about Leslie Grantham, and they said that he was cast in it, but they didn't know about what he'd done previously. And again, he probably wouldn't have been cast if they knew about that. That's where we were then to where we are now, where they're letting these propagandists write for Doctor Who. And it's gone further than that. I don't know if you guys have checked them out. I tried reading some of the new novels for Doctor Who now. They're awful, and it's all integrated with all their diverse nonsense in there.
No.
There was a time, and I really miss this, and it makes me sad. When we had Borders, you know, the big store that had books galore in there, I used to go in there every lunchtime, and do you know what I'd do? I would go along the entire run of the Doctor Who books that they had for me to read, and I'd pick one out probably each week, and I'd just go home and read it, and I'd start at about 7 o'clock, and next thing I know, it's 10 o'clock. I was into it. Now, I won't go anywhere near them because the story will be awful and it's complete propaganda that they put in them now. It's
Now
terrible.
We've got Squinty Mint saying, and like I said, I always like the challenge. I think there's a conflation going on in this discussion, that the not listening when it came to Disney was surely down to RTD doing his own thing. Not every BBC show is as unbearably woke as RTD's version of the show. Yeah, you're right. He had more freedom than many showrunners. But he's called a showrunner. How many people are called a showrunner? I tell you what, it was a great ruse, wasn't it, to become the showrunner in 2005, and suddenly he had different powers, because actually most people have to just really fight the fight. And that's good to see. Stefan, please, if everybody, and I know Goldie, you're there, I'm just trying to fit everyone in as fast as I can. I had Stefan in on Monday. He went to film as Fabulous. Good to see you, Stefan. And you were just saying points of view is more like points of the BBC now. But he did make the point, Verity Lambert had strict supervision by Sydney Newman. RTD2 has been given free rein, as no one senior has the balls to go against it. That does seem true. Goldie?
Yeah, that one person that said that not every BBC show is reflective of the RTD2 output, and that is true. But what I would say the difference is, though, is that I know that a lot of people who are working in the entertainment industry, a lot of them are against a lot of this stuff. But of course, they have people over them who are forcing them to include certain things. Whereas I think the difference is with RTD, he is a true believer in all this stuff. He doesn't need anyone above him saying, RTD, put this in, because he's already doing that. And I think that's the difference.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at this. I know we mentioned the LGBT stuff a lot and the woke stuff a lot, as in, you know, I'm just saying loosely, but this is what really irritated me the most, I have to say. So what I'll do is I'll just set this up, because this irritated me no end. So let me just kind of set it up and you'll see what I mean. This wasn't the character I recognized, John and Goldie. Will you please interrupt any time, right?
I was just going to say, you look quite tan there, Brendan. Is this Benidorm, Brendan, that we're seeing on screen?
Yeah, Benidorm, Brendan, yeah, slag. Here we go. Dream of making this incarnation of the Doctor sadistic, vindictive, ruthlessly clinical in his ugly, angry outbursts, aimed particularly at their arch nemesis, white men with a view contrary to their own, has caused strong, heated debate amongst fans and divided fandom big time since the Interstellar Song Contest was aired on Saturday, the 17th of May. Now, apparently, the Doctor is allowed to behave like some tyrannical torturer, like some by-generated Darth Sidious, like some angry British fisherman after being sold down the river by the British government in our latest capitulation to the EU. Like some possessed police officer with a twitchy taser. Oh yes, didn't we have a recent moment where RTD rejoiced in Lucky Day's script in the impetuous use of tasers? Yeah.
Hot taser lady.
Okay, sorry, John.
I was going to say, I've said it before, and I might have to on my channel go and watch the Gatwa era through properly, because I have only seen bits of it. But I remember you sending this to me, and from what I've seen of the Gatwa era, the Doctor is not in that show whatsoever. There is no Doctor there at all. I mean, that is, you know, the whole RTD creation, the Time Lord Victorious thing. But what I don't get about it is we get the 60th where Gatwa is first introduced as the Doctor in his pants, right? And he basically gives Tennant's Doctor a cuddle and basically said, that's why I'm here, because you're burdened, you know, I'm free. I'm paraphrasing. I'm free and fresh, and I'm not held back by all those burdens. Completely thrown out of the window by RTD by the fact that he's now torturing people. So, you know, again, for me, the Doctor in my mind, as I grew up, was always, the Doctor always had the moral high ground, you know, depending on who he was with. The Doctor doesn't have the moral high ground here, does he? Because you can't argue against a villain or a big bad when you're torturing somebody.
Well, can I just say that when everybody's managed to watch Dalek Master Plan Part 3, Devil's Planet, there's a moment I joked in our detox where basically the William Hartnell First Doctor, the original, don't you know, was basically tasering the prisoners who were approaching the spa. Now, think about it. But there is a piece of dialogue from Terry Nation. He says, but I don't hurt people, as in kill them and all the rest of it. He actually says that because he was actually going, hey, as he was tasering people. Now, you jump to now, and he tasered, I'll say it again, for a minute. And so it was over the top. He was clearly out of control because part of the narrative was that Susan had to suddenly appear in his ear hole and say, stop. In other words, our doctor, my Invasion of Time Part 1 doctor, who I was just way off beam. I didn't like him. Now you put him in a skirt in Reality War. Now you make him fancy men all the time, but then Dutch's companion for somebody to eat, Childer. And suddenly I don't like the Doctor, and suddenly I just don't want to watch it. And suddenly you've badly written it, and suddenly you've screwed up the franchise, and suddenly you've hit an iceberg, RTD. Suddenly everything goes wrong. Goldie, you're being patient. You're early 20s. Did you see behind this master plan what RTD was trying to do with this torturing scene?
No, and it's even worse when you consider the previous episode, The Story in the Engine, set in Nigeria, has a villain which essentially does the same thing as the villain in this, in the Interstellar Song context, but on a much larger scale. The Doctor let that guy go and said, right, you have a second chance. But with this episode, when it's this villain, and we all know why, he has to embarrass him. He has to be very cruel. And that's what makes it even worse, because you've got two episodes side by side where it shows where the two villains are essentially doing the same thing. But the Doctor in that episode lets him off because, you know. But in this episode, because the villain is who he is, he has to be, diminished and told that he's evil and has to be treated in the way he is.
And look at my thread. Look at what people are saying. Are they all saying, Brendan, I actually like that scene. Brendan, it's my favorite Doctor scene. Brendan, it was one of my magic moments. It's a clip I watch a lot. You see, if the BBC had ears and eyes, they would know that this was a misfire.
But the two things that I'll bring up from what you guys talked about this scene. Right, okay. The first one I would say is, this is the writers projecting themselves into the show. This is Juno Dawson. I think that's who it is, isn't it? Who wrote it. And there's Russell T Davies. That's what they think they would like to do to people that they disagree with. So they're putting themselves in this episode. I have no doubts about that whatsoever. The other thing I would say as well, it goes back to one of your earlier shows, Brendan, where the source was saying that BBC execs have said, oh no, we can't scare kids anymore. But it's perfectly all right to torture a white guy playing an alien on screen. Then that's okay. That's fair game. So there's a morality imbalance with the BBC execs and producers of Doctor Who, isn't there? You know.
Yes, he's allowed to behave in such an undoctorly way because he got a touch of hypothermia. He got icicles growing on his, becoming our very own galactic Mr. Freeze.
You have put ice in my heart, darling, and I will stand and watch you freeze.
Our own Captain Birdseye with a vindictive, twitchy fish fingers in that mavety glove. Who knew that torturing people you don't like for prolonged periods of time is permitted if the progressives approve of your concocted cause?
Well, that's all right then.
Who knew? What happened to those liberal virtues that have proliferated our prisons and justice system? I, for one, not just kid, was stunned. But look, it's okay. Calm down, everyone. The Doctor used the get out of jail immunity card excuse. He was triggered.
The death of 3 trillion people triggered me.
The potential death of 3 trillion people meant he felt truly warranted in applying.
How about we try this 3 trillion times?
So, yeah, I mean, I could go on. I think the case for the prosecution is made, don't you think?
Well, it is 100%. And I mean, again, I don't know what it is with it looks terrible with him looking like he is with the gym glove on, the weight training glove on. It's terrible. This is just, not only is it the show bristled with hate, it's also the dialogue is terrible as well. Doctor Who was always about, there were dark moments, but it was always about giving you hope when you watched a Doctor Who episode. It was escaping from what is around you. And I miss that so badly because we don't half need that kind of Doctor Who right now and what's going on in the world just to escape into for an hour.
Yeah.
We miss it.
Hey, God, my source hasn't finished. He said the audience left the show in droves. I mean, the Jodie Whittaker era was getting twice the viewership. That was pure, and that was poorly received, and that was getting twice a number. And you can't say, oh, but the audience has changed since then. No, that was a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. That argument doesn't work anymore, does it? At all. And when Antiques Roadshow is getting more viewers than you, Country File, The Traitors, and Bargain Hunt Homes is getting more viewers, Bargain Hunt Repeat, it then doesn't wash. We're not buying it. And that's what happened with this latest Disney era. They were making it for an audience that just didn't show up, didn't care, didn't exist, because if they want to watch Heartstopper, they'll go and watch that, which is really good. And then, of course, why would you watch Doctor Who if you're called a racist and a transphobe? It's suicide. It's mind-blowing. And then I'll just come to this and then I'll bring in Goldie. The thing with all these rumors, though, Brendan, is I understand why they come, because fans are desperate. They want to fill the holes, and Doctor Who fans are particular types of people. They like certainty. They want to know that the show is in safe hands, that there's going to be something going on. They want to know that it's not going to be as awful as it's been for the last 8 or 9 years, or whatever it's been, the last 2 eras. They want to know that they're going to get their show back. But my honest feeling is that the horse has bolted. You're not going to get the show back. It's not going to be different again. And I don't think it's going to be very scary, because I don't think the BBC, unless it goes out at 10 o'clock at night, will do it. Goldie, there's no hope.
Yeah, and once again, they try to divert accountability by saying that, well, the ratings don't matter. You hear this a lot, don't you? It doesn't matter that they're not getting good ratings, because ratings don't mean anything anymore. But then when The Traitors gets 11 million viewers, they're posting it on all their accounts. Look, guys, it was the most watched thing ever. Oh, wow. So they clearly do matter, because nobody brags about something that has no value.
Yeah.
They know that getting a lot of viewers is a good thing.
And
but
then
when Doctor Who doesn't get any, they're like, oh, no, that doesn't matter. Just we'll just brush over that.
But month 68, it becomes very high viewership. You've got to watch those figures. That's what they always move the goalpost, don't they?
Yeah.
And before John really goes for it, so we've got this journalist. She always goes on. She said Doctor Who fans need to stop rooting for the show's downfall. Oh, you see, shut up. The show is tackling socio-political issues in the way it has always done. It's been home to LGBTQ characters for decades, blah, blah, blah. And so we're attacked. And then, of course, she just says there's more fans out there slagging it off. They need to stop. And yeah, I don't want your take. As I said, Dead Ringer said it just died of cringe. It regenerated into Billy Piper for clicks. It was woke, touchy-feely Doctor Who I am now. Power. I mean, this is the BBC slagging off the BBC, so I feel quite safe in this one. But yeah, she said fans have nothing to fear, but as a fan, I'm going to look at the positives, not anti-woke rantings or online rumours. I haven't mentioned much about woke tonight at all. I've used the phrase because that's what people are using. What I've said is I'm not happy with the stories. I'm not happy with the direction. I'm not happy with breaking the fourth wall. I mean, that's what I'm talking about, the quality of the production values, actually. And she says, I look on with tired anger during Whittaker's era from 17 to 22 under showrunner Chibnall, when there was an exhausting cycle of conversation over the show's plummeting ratings and constant complaints over storyline, stilted writing, and dynamics.
Yeah, exactly. So she's basically proven herself wrong, because she said that the only reason Doctor Who gets so much hate now is because of all this discrimination. But then she said there that the Whiskey era was criticised because of the bad writing and the bad characterization. So she just proved herself wrong. So she's just said in her own words that the fans weren't angry about all that other superficial stuff. It was because how it was written.
It's a gift that keeps giving.
I mean, again, she's just a complete activist, isn't she? She has no journalistic integrity whatsoever. I mean, the simple fact of the matter, when you're going to just drill it down to its basics, was it was crap. That's it. You know, you can't say it any other way, and you can spin it of saying it's an anti-woke agenda. No. We critique episodes of Doctor Who. Do you know what? We do attack actors from time to time, or I do, when it's fair game, when they've come after me or come after viewers. I will do that. But otherwise, we will go, right, okay, this story is really bad. Why? Because the characterization is terrible. The acts don't work properly. You know, the effects didn't work. You know, it was rushed. That's what we do as fans and what we do as reviewers.
But we don't
These people, yeah.
Sorry, but we don't just do it about now. This is what they're mixing up. We slagged off the Merker.
Yeah.
Me and Jamie have just the last 2 nights been watching The Awakening. I mean, I know why it's called The Awakening, because you fall asleep a lot. I mean, I am a critic of classic Who as well. In other words, I'm passionate about it. I'm well informed, I hope. And basically, I'm allowed, therefore, to go, that's better than that.
Yeah.
They're quite happy for us to do the 10 worst villains, the 10 best monsters, the 10... Everyone talks about their favourite Doctor, the worst Doctor. Everybody compares, but suddenly you're not allowed to compare. I was told off comparing Dalek Master Plan and the writing of William Hartnell to Twice Upon a Time. Well, no. Everybody in Doctor Who world compares, and it's allowed until they don't like the comparison. That's all.
The comparisons between those missing episodes of Master Plan and to current Doctor Who, for me, in 25 minutes an episode, look at the characterization, look at the development, look at the action that they build in those episodes, which is wonderful. You don't get that now. You can go 45 minutes an episode and you'll get wham bam CGI, as I said, then you'll have a 5 or 10 minute RTD finisher, you know, big reset at the end. That's the end of it. I want it to go back. If it ever does come back, I want somebody that is skilled like that, who can actually develop a story with characters. And I think you can still do it. The talk of you can't do that kind of writing anymore, I think it's nonsense. You can still do that.
Absolutely nonsense. Stefan, good to see you. Look, check out our show on Monday. Stefan was there. You know, I called him the chosen one. Film is fabulous. We want a new Doctor to be their own identity, but with a slight nod to the past. But Ncuti was just too different. Now, we've entertained the crowds, I have to say. I think we have. Now, John, shout out what is going on with your channel while I just advertise you. What's going on?
It's coming back. It's been in a time eddy for the last week or so. Yeah, just doing some more Stargate SG-1 watch parties. I've got some Stargate documentaries coming up, some Doctor Who ones as well about villains and famous characters from the show. So there's some good stuff coming. So yeah, if you fancy checking it out at some point, yeah, pop on over to Sci-Fi Chronicles.
And
Thanks,
you might see Sense for your Brendan on, because we're going to be talking about some Doctor Who as well.
Yep.
And Goldie, fantastic to get you back on. Gosh, we really went for it tonight. But I have to say, I've really enjoyed both your contributions, because to be honest, we're covering 3 decades of Doctor Who fandom. That really helps. And honestly, Goldie, I'm amazed that although I'm old enough to be almost your blooming granddad, we kind of agree on quite a lot.
Yeah, and I think that's just a general sentiment that's been shared across the fandom. Like, people are coming at it from different angles, but I do think that even those who have supported this recent era are coming to the conclusion that there are many problems with this show. and it does need to be adjusted going forward.
So everybody, I hope that entertained you. I've got more source material. It looks as though I've got like Christian and Joe hopefully lined up for Saturday night, 10 p.m. Anyway, without further ado, have a good night. We'll try and find some hope. Bye for now.
Bye.